to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on the 11 o'clock hour BPR on GBH and NEPM. Former NBC political director Chuck Todd gives us his post-election analysis as the government shutdown becomes the longest ever. Will the Democrats hold strong as flights get canceled nationwide and people go without SNAP benefits? And is Mamdani the future?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll open the lines for a job market economic check-in with a stagnant labor market obsessed with AI. People are holding on to their current jobs for dear life, except for Gen Z. They're prioritizing work-life balance, even if it means getting laid off and taking a lower pay. Where are you on this? Call or text next on the 11 o'clock hour at BPR, GBH, and NEPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The federal government shutdown is now 37 days old, the longest in U.S. history. It's affecting numerous government programs. One of them is designed to help millions of people pay heating bills in the winter. From North Country Public Radio, Emily Russell has more.
The Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, known as LIHEAP, serves about 6 million households across the country. In New York, the application period was supposed to open earlier this week, but it's now indefinitely delayed due to the shutdown. Florence Wright and her husband live in Colton, New York, about 40 miles south of the Canadian border. They rely on the program to keep their home warm.
Yeah, I mean, we burn fuel oil. What are we going to do if the heat don't go through? You know, one tank of fuel is half of our income a month.
Kansas, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota have also delayed LIHEAP enrollment amid the shutdown. For NPR News, I'm Emily Russell in Saranac Lake, New York.
The U.S. is reducing airline traffic as the shutdown deepens. Starting tomorrow, the Federal Aviation Administration will begin reducing the amount of plane traffic. Up to 10% of traffic will be reduced in 40 of the busiest markets. Henry Hardevelt is a travel industry analyst. He says that starting tomorrow, it's going to be a really, really bad time to fly.
This is going to be an unimaginable, unprecedented, unwelcome, unpleasant level of chaos. If you don't have to fly starting on Friday, please don't. Stay home.
The shutdown is affecting air traffic controllers. They don't get paid. California Congresswoman and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has announced she won't seek re-election. Pelosi is 85. She was the first and only woman to serve as Speaker of the House, second in line to the presidency. Pelosi's represented the San Francisco area for nearly 40 years. The Food and Drug Administration is taking its first major step toward regulating artificial intelligence in mental health care. As NPR's Windsor Johnston reports, a panel is meeting today to determine if AI could have a place in therapy.
The FDA's Digital Health Advisory Committee is debating whether generative chatbots should be treated as medical devices. Psychologist Marissa Cohen warns that while AI chatbots can sound supportive, they can also reinforce unhealthy thinking.
It's learning your conversational style, and it's essentially mirroring you. So you're going to get a lot of affirmation, you're going to get a lot of validation, which can feel really good, but it's not leading to that growth piece.
Several states have already moved to restrict the use of AI tools in therapy, but this is the first time the federal government has considered setting national standards. Windsor Johnston, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Travelers through Boston's Logan Airport could see fewer flights as the government shutdown drags into a second month, as we've been reporting and as we just heard from our colleagues in Washington. The Federal Aviation Administration has announced 40 high-volume markets where flights will be reduced by 10%. And yes, Logan Airport is one of them. The official list will be made public a little later today. FAA officials say the move is intended to keep the airspace safe during the shutdown. According to an analysis of 2024 passenger traffic in North America by Airports Council International, which is a global trade association, Logan is listed as the 17th busiest airport in the United States and Canada, with more than 9 million international passengers and 33 million domestic passengers each year. Congresswoman Catherine Clark says a Democratic sweep in the key elections across the country should bring added pressure on Republicans to end this government shutdown. Speaking at a press briefing at the Democrats' campaign headquarters in Washington yesterday, Clark said the election night results represent a clear message from American voters.
The Republicans need to hear what the people are saying because it's clear. They are saying enough is enough. They see the last year for what it is, a string of back-to-back broken promises.
The shutdown is now the longest in U.S. history. 47 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from the Lemelson Foundation, dedicated to improving lives through invention, innovation, and climate action. And the William T. Grant Foundation, supporting research to improve the lives of young people at wtgrantfdn.org.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We won't be there on Tuesday, though, because the library is closed because of Veterans Day. But we will be working. The mayor's going to join us on November 18th, Michelle Wu from noon to 1. And Yo-Yo Ma, the legendary, fantastic cellist, is going to perform at the Boston Public Library November 19th. No tickets, no RSVP. It's free. Yo-Yo Ma is free. Hello, Jim.
Hi there, Marjorie. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, good. So here now via Zoom, political analyst Chuck Todd. Chuck's former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press and host of the show Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the platform Newsphere, Noosphere. He's also host of the Chuck Toddcast. You can find it at thechucktoddcast.com or youtube.com/@thechucktoddcast. Good morning there, Chuck Todd.
Morning, hey, guys. Chuck. Hey, Chuck.
Hey.
So, first of all, congratulations on your Decision Desk 2025 debut with Chris Cillizza. That it turned out great, I understand.
It did. We did. We a few 100,000
good for
going
you
at one time. I mean, we think we may have topped over 500,000 uniques. This is the wave, right? This was it was if all your favorite data geeks on politics on Twitter is who we had on our show. And it was just a terrific way to sort of unpack the election in real time.
Okay, well, good for you. And so we've had 2 days now. What's your analysis of what happened?
Look, Donald Trump creates the weather, right? And I mean, that's the issue that the Republicans have. This was a huge win for Democrats. When you look at the depth and breadth of it, and we all focus on Virginia and New Jersey. I leave out New York City because I think that's its own universe, and we can talk about that separately. But as far as 2026 is concerned, right, trying to figure out what are we learning here, look at Georgia. Look at Pennsylvania, right? Like, I look at these secondary places that only reinforced what we saw. How about the fact that there's going to be 64 seats for Democrats in the Virginia House of Delegates, their highest total in 35 years. They've not had, it was, the best showing for a Democratic gubernatorial candidate in 40 years. That is deep success. Every single district in Virginia that Donald Trump carried by 5 points or less in the state house, Democrats won. Now, look, they didn't do as well in those 5 to 10. Okay, that's and that's something to keep in mind when we think about 2026. But that means you're starting at basically you can target. This is just like the old days in the pre-Trump era. Any Republican district 55% or less, any state where the sort of the average Republican success is in that 54 to 56 range. And you're suddenly in competitive territory. That puts Ohio in play in a midterm, puts Iowa in play in a midterm. Now you take a look at Kansas. Now you take a look at Alaska. So, and the fact is, I know we can overread these off-year elections, but they consistently foreshadow, particularly this one, foreshadow what the political weather. I mean, this is sort of like the beginning of the 2026 cycle was Tuesday, and history shows this has a huge impact. And you're going to see retirements that'll surprise people in the next 2 to 5. You're going to see recruits that Democrats get that they were struggling to get before that election. So in the old Haley Barbour, one of my favorite Haley Barbour-isms is good gets better and bad gets worse. This is how a situation allows good to get better and bad to get worse.
He was a Mississippi Republican, right, state?
Yeah.
Is that Mississippi Republican?
Yeah. Mississippi, yeah.
You know what? I certainly in Virginia, where there are a lot of federal workers, but I'm hoping that this wasn't just about the cost of butter, the cost of beef, the cost of gas, that it was also people didn't like to see pictures of mothers getting dragged off. We had them at a car wash here in Boston the other day, these bad hombres that are wiping down your car, mothers at the car wash that have been working there, getting arrested. They didn't like the fact of taking away research on things like pediatric cancer. I'm hoping it's more than just the money, but maybe I'm
Marjorie,
totally
no, I don't think you are. Let me give you an example in New Jersey. Jack Ciattarelli, when you look at his raw vote, the Republican candidate, he actually got slightly more votes, raw votes, in 2025 than he did in 2021, and he against Phil Murphy. He got basically about I think it was like 1.2 million votes. Let me get the, I have the exact math here in a second, so I'm going to show this to you. The point was, he got, here's the numbers. He got 1.25 million votes to Murphy's 1.3 in 2021. In 2025, Ciattarelli got 1.3. So he got 100,000, a little over 100,000 more votes. You know how many more votes Mikey Sherrill got? She got 420,000 more votes.
Okay.
So when you're wondering, did more people show, this wasn't about the cost of living when you're able to increase your Democratic vote share, right? Essentially, the normal voters come out, and Ciattarelli got the normal Republican vote that he could expect to get in New Jersey. Why Sherrill won in a landslide and not in a nail biter is because she got 400,000 more people showed up.
Yeah.
What do you think's motivating them to show up? So I think if you're wondering, look, it's the entire atmospherics. This is why I say the president creates political, creates the political weather, no matter who the president is. But in this case, it's President Trump. This is absolutely, when you look at the turnout levels that Democrats got, they were through the roof, okay? And how about the fact that in the exit poll in Virginia, the Democratic Party had an unfavorable rating of 52%, and she still won by the biggest margin that a Democrat has won at in 40 years. So what do you think that tells you? This was about Donald John Trump. All across the board.
So let's talk about Donald John Trump for a second. I was shocked. I made a bet with my younger daughter as to how many times Trump would say the elections were rigged when he got the results. And the answer
I'm with you. I'm shocked
was zero.
That he didn't.
He lived in the real world. He admitted they lost. He acknowledged that the shutdown hurt the Republicans. But then when everybody's writing, well, Trump's going to, do the pivot and he's going to start talking about the economy in the right way.
Oh, no.
Instead of feeling people's pain, he's trying to pretend there is no pain. So the ultra heartening thing, at least to me, for the Democrats, is he can't ever admit that anything, except for that brief moment, anything he touches is anything but perfect.
Well, and this is what's going to be fascinating to watch, right? His reaction matters here a lot, right? He's whether it should is a whole other story, but it will. And, I look at the NBC poll that came out over the weekend, coupled with what I saw in the actual election results themselves. And, if you're an elected Republican, you have an interesting problem that you're facing. The party brand is actually in better shape than the Democratic Party brand. But what drags Republicans down is not the Republican Party brand. It is the Trump brand, right?
Yeah.
Trump's in the toilet. The Trump brand is the problem. In a logical world, and I'll tell you, the way this would normally work with a second-term president is this would be the beginning of the lame duck stage. And what happens when you're a lame duck? Members of your own party start to worry about their own political future a lot more than your political future. And so this is why I think you're going to see retirements, because I think some Republicans still don't know how do you get distance from Trump without Trump tanking you because he does have control of the base, right? He is able to tell, don't help that. I mean, look, what he did, he just totally abandoned Winsome Earl Sears, right? Just completely abandoned her.
Republican lieutenant governor who was running against Spamberger in Virginia.
Yes, my apologies for the quick reference, but he totally abandoned, and when the base abandons, that's how bottoms fall out, right? And that's kind of what happened to her. So it is still a rough decision for a Republican to do. But when you look at these results, the smarter play for these Republicans is to figure out, how do you seek distance? And Trump he's not stupid, right? He's petrified of lame duck status, which is why he's trying to engage in the redistricting wars. But oh my goodness, if you want to talk about the be careful what you wish for, or what's the other cliche when you start a war? Careful starting a war. It's really hard to end it. He started these redistricting wars. Virginia's going to end up now redistricting. They're going to net Democrats 3 seats. We're going to go through this entire process and get basically the same dead even map that we had to start with. Maybe Republicans find 1 or 2 more seats, but I think they created some dummy manders. And in a blue wave environment, right? And what you saw was this is the beginnings of what could be a blue wave. In a blue wave environment, with Latinos not part of this Trump coalition, they were just simply swing voters. And I think that's been the biggest what Republicans have not understood about their newfound Latino support in 2024. They were renting. They're not owning this new constituency. They simply are swing voters. And if you are banking on your redistricting off of these new voters that you think are now yours, and you realize they're swing voters, much more sensitive to the economic environment, boy, or you could be in for a rude awakening come a year from now in the state of Texas, when you think you've created 5 new Republican seats, and you could be ending up in a situation where maybe you only netted 1 or 2 because Democrats pulled off some wins thanks to Latinos swinging the other way.
By the way, one of my colleagues here corrected me about he didn't use the term rigged. He didn't use it in human candidate elections. He did use it to describe Prop 50, the ballot question that was a landslide win for Newsom and the ability to redistrict out there.
I believe the word rigged was in that ballot prop. Right?
Yeah. By the way. So back briefly, because we want to get to the shutdown with you, you said something like sort of its own universe. I don't know if you meant New York City or the race
New York
itself.
City. Well, but, because it was, look, I understand that I think he's an incredible political athlete, right? And I thought, he certainly is going to be a galvanizing force. He's going to be a leader of the progressive movement inside this country. All of those things are true. But I actually think, given how successful Democrats were overall, he actually underperformed. And if you look at, and now granted, you had the whole, look, I think Cuomo got a lot closer than I expected.
Yeah,
I think the Trump endorsement on with Staten Island voters in particular mattered a little bit. And, that also tells me is that New York City was simply a referendum on Mamdani. It was like, I compare it more to those elections we had in Pennsylvania where you were just deciding, do you keep the judge or do you reject the judge, right? It's just a good old-fashioned retention election. I don't think anybody went to the polls to vote for Andrew Cuomo. I think you went to the polls in New York to make a decision. I'm okay with Mamdani or I'm down on Mamdani.
But just
right? And it was one or the other. That's why I don't think that I don't factor it into the larger, hey, was this part of the blue wave? He happened to win in the same environment. He's in that race is to me a separate category.
But just one quick thing about this, and again, maybe I'm wrong, but we've been talking for years. Elizabeth Warren always talked about it, that the capitalist system in the United States is rigged toward the very wealthy. It's been that way, you could probably say, since Nixon, or certainly since Reagan, and that we kind of bought this idea that if you were scraping by, you couldn't make it. Somehow it was your fault, you couldn't make it. It seems to me part of the Mamdani thing is people realizing, 40 years later, or whatever it is now, that it's not that they are embracing socialism, they are understanding that that capitalism needs to be regulated, which it has been less and less for 40 years.
Marjorie, I feel like you just read my Substack this week.
Well, did you write this?
I went deep into this
Hold
issue.
on. You wrote this,
It's actually
John.
right in front of
I
her.
didn't notice the byline. Sorry. Sorry.
I'm like, oh, wow. I was sort of half kidding. Like, I didn't. But you really are reading my side.
I read it.
Awesome.
I read it, and I forgot that you wrote it.
No, I dug deep into the NBC News poll on the issue of capitalism versus socialism because I knew the top line was going to have people draw, I think, an incorrect conclusion, right? So the top line is, wow, Democrats are net negative on capitalism and net positive on socialism. There's no other group that looks like that, right? Independents are net positive on capitalism. But when you actually look deeper into this, you realize and this is, and you quoted me correctly, which is what I believe.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant, Chuck. I tried to steal it.
That I made. Is that, and this is why I go back, this is what happened in the 19-teens and 20s, right? We knew people knew that the system was rigged. And that's when we got we got direct election of senators. We got women the right to vote. But the most important thing we don't talk about is we also put in the Constitution the right to tax income. And you know what that was about at the time? It wasn't about making you and I pay income tax. It was about making the wealthy. And in fact, you know, the entire property tax infrastructure in America, so also that's when it took hold, was in the early part of the 20th century. And this was all in a response to this idea, all these wealthy people were just getting rich. They're not helping the country. And this was considered the more capitalistic way to redistribute wealth, right? Which is you're not moving money to rich people to poor people. You're using rich people money to build up the entire apparatus of the country, right? To help pay for the schools, to help pay for the parks, to help pay for the roads. And I think we're coming, this is what the voters are screaming about. And this is not about wanting to embrace socialism. This is about fix capitalism.
Yeah.
This version doesn't work. It's rigged. We have massive income inequality, but we still are a country, right? You're never going to have the United States of America be sort of, you know, a full-on socialistic system because, you know, we were founded on this idea of individual liberty, right? We're never going to be that, but we do want guardrails on capitalism.
That's right.
And I think that's the smarter Democrat in 28 that's trying to fuse these two coalitions. The Mamdani voter that's ready to try, I'll try anything, okay, because this system sucks for me here living in, scratching and clawing in New York City. Is the person that is able to have that. It's like, look, we want people to succeed. We're not anti-wealth. We just want everybody to have a fair shot at becoming that wealthy person.
Can I just say, wait, we really got to move on to the shutdown. I just want to say
it was a brilliant piece. Brilliant piece. Go ahead.
Okay, one last thing about Mamdani.
Hit like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
I don't want to leave this discussion without saying messengers really matter. In a world of the dullest candidates on all sides in all races, this guy really has it, whatever that is. Okay.
I will tell you this, one quick other thing. He smiles all the time.
He does.
It is tough to make somebody who smiles a boogeyman. And
I am totally with you.
It's why AOC has always been hard to create a... Look, Nancy Pelosi had a scowl or two on her face. She wasn't always a happy warrior. It was easy to make her a boogie woman. AOC is not that way, and Mamdani's not that way. Nothing wrong with having a little optimistic view and a smile on your face to make your opponents.
Beautiful teeth.
Actually, in fairness, though, I think it was what I looked up this morning, 1987, Trump smiled. So he has smiled, just not in recent times. Okay, so it's time for Chuck Todd's weekly shutdown prediction.
Jesus.
Headlines this morning on CNN say intense negotiations, and it sounds like Sheldon Whitehouse was with us the other day, by the way, and he basically said to us, as long as we cut, I'm putting words in his mouth, but this is what he said, as long as we can cut a deal and the Republicans agree to it, we'll then vote to do the shutdown and vote on the deal afterwards. When we brought up the subject with Markey and Governor Healy, both of them said we don't trust them, but that seems to be the direction this thing is going to go. Is it, or how's this going to end and when?
Well, you know, the Democrats do too well.
Yeah.
Right?
So now they can't. Yeah.
And now some progressives are like, why, let's keep a good thing going is the mindset. Now, I go back to the same thing. I mean, I feel like I'm wash, rinse, repeat. Man, you won. You've won the argument. Okay? And if they screw you on the deal, guess when they're going to pay a steep price. The voters are paying attention.
Yeah.
You've got the attention of everybody. I'd be careful intentionally making people's lives harder in the meantime. That's all I'm going to say. And everybody, you look at that NBC News poll. Yes, you can take the two Republican numbers and combine them and make yourself feel better as a Democrat that, 52% either blame the Republicans in Congress or Donald Trump. Well, 42% blame Democrats, right? And the longer this goes, the more every incumbent gets blamed. So you need to be careful there. Ultimately, Trump is always good. The president deserves the most blame because all of us as Americans expect our president to be the adult in the room, even when Donald Trump's your president, right? Everybody expects that the president's supposed to be the one that takes the children of Congress and says, hey, get your act together. Obviously, when you have a man-child as president, it's tough to have a man-child be a disciplinarian. But this is not going to be well for him either. So I do think Trump's motivated to hurry up and get this done now, too. And that's an important move, right? He had not engaged. And it's clear, right? Mike Johnson is just literally a puppet. Mike Johnson is a human puppet. It is astonishing. The guy has no spine. His spine is Donald Trump's right arm. I mean, it is obvious that it is.
I don't know if I told this story on air. There are a million great Mike Johnson stories. He is doing a press thing the other day with Secretary of Agriculture. I can't remember her name. She says, your government has failed you. Your government has failed you. Talking about SNAP stuff. She finishes. He goes to the mic and he says, when the secretary said your government has failed you, she meant to say the Democratic Party has failed you. It was like, SNL.
By the way, Donald Trump threw congressional Republicans.
He did.
Yes, he totally did.
Like, they had the leverage, whatever leverage they thought, because in fairness, it is Democrats that instigated this. And yet, what did Trump say? We blew it. Wow.
Hey, keep writing, because we need new ideas.
Yeah, did I tell you again, the Substack piece was just brilliant. Just brilliant.
See you,
I'm
Chuck Todd.
subscribing again.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Double subscribe.
Oh, double subscribe.
You should subscribe, by the way. It is great.
It's great. Yeah, it is. Okay. I should look at the byline, too. That would be good. We've been speaking with political analyst Chuck Todd, the host of the Chuck Toddcast, which you can find at thechucktoddcast.com or youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast. He's also the host of Sunday Night with Chuck Todd on the Newsphere platform. Thank you very much to Chuck Todd. Coming up after the quick break, we're opening the phone and text lines for a job market economic check-in. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR and GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, security expert and author Anthony Amore join us to talk about his new book, The Rembrandt Heist, the true story of a master thief, a stolen masterpiece, and how one of Boston's most daring art crimes unfolded at the Museum of Fine Arts. It's a crime-ridden tale of brilliance, audacity, and obsession. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, featuring artwork this fall from the Boston Printmakers and the New England Mosaic Society, plus a special exhibit of miniatures from the museum's collection. More at artcomplex.org. And Dover Rug & Home, rugs and carpeting for today's lifestyle with in-home rug trial and design consultation. Dover Rug in Natick, Boston, Burlington, and online at doverrug.com. Dover Rug, rugs and the people who know them.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow. We are not at the library on Tuesday because it is Veterans Day. So a time for an economic check-in. We do this every once in a while with you. In the legacy media world of think piece writers, the consensus seems to be split on whether Americans want to leave their jobs en masse or hold on to them so tightly. Job hugging is the term du jour at the New York Times and the Boston Boston Globe to describe those in the workforce anxious about the direction of the economy, sticking by jobs for the sake of their own financial security, no matter how miserable they are, because they're worried about trying to find something better in a job market riddled with AI resume scrapers. Meanwhile, at the Wall Street Journal, ever the place to get info on today's youth, it's exactly the opposite phenomenon. They write that Gen Zers saying that losing a job beats getting overworked and underpaid for a company that doesn't respect you or treat you well. Now, I assume people know today, I assume you heard on the news, job cut numbers. This is incredible. In October,
horrible.
The highest in 22 years. And in that context, we're opening the phone and text lines, 877-301-8970. Gen Z or older, are you a job hugger hanging on for dear life, hoping this coming Trump economic storm will spare you, or are you someone who thinks there's something to this idea that it's better to be out of a job than in a job that doesn't treat you well? 877-301-8970 is the number.
You know, the Times did a piece about this last weekend in terms of mothers with kids. Obviously, they have kids if they're mothers, Marjorie. Any case, they were talking
that is
about.
A really good
I thought that was a brilliant insight there. I wanted to add that.
But it sort of doubly emphasizes
That's right.
the point.
That's right. But they were talking about that. That's their biggest problem is that they are never off the clock, and you're getting emails, you're getting Slack stuff, you're getting texts from the bosses, at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and it's driving them bananas because they feel like they have no family time. But I was talking to you about this before the show. Everything is so expensive now that if you're going to make any money, you got to kind of come flying out of the box in your 20s to start making money. Because you can't do what you could do when we were young, kind of float around in these jobs where you make pennies and then, wait till you're 40 to make some money. You can't do that anymore.
But there was a totally different mindset. When you and I entered the workforce, there was this notion you work 20 hours a day, particularly if you're lucky enough to find a job in an area where you're interested, even if you're treated like crap. Young people today are much more concerned about balance in their lives. They're much more concerned about being treated respectfully. So that's a huge difference. The one common thread I was pointing, the Wall Street Journal says one thing, New York Times and the Globe are saying another. The one common thread seems to be young people in particular, but I don't think it's limited to young people. Particularly young people can't stand their jobs. Now, I know, I'm serious.
Well, that's part of it.
I mean, maybe it's their supervisors, maybe it's the hours, maybe it's the stress, apparently, is a huge part of this thing. And they say there's a lot of make-up stress, meaning things around which there doesn't need to be urgency, but there actually is. But so the common thread seems to be the vast majority are not crazy about their jobs. Some job hug and some decide, I don't care if I have a job. It's much more important to have a life and that I'm treated well. The number is 877-301-8970. As I said, whether you're a Gen Z or not, which camp do you fall in? And by the way, while we're at it, how much do you like or not like your job and why?
I think that's a very important point, though, what you said. Well, if you're kind of in a mission job, you want to be a teacher, or you want to be a nurse, or you want to be a physician, or a social worker, or you want to be a reporter. Reporters make no money either. But you feel like a calling. This is like your life's work. You're so thrilled to be doing it. That makes it much different than if you're going to go work for an insurance company. You know what I mean?
Well, some people want to work for an insurance company.
Well, I know, but there's not really much mission involved in an insurance company, I don't think, because you don't necessarily think that well of your insurance company, since every time something happens, they try to screw you.
I don't want to make you feel bad, but can I be honest here? Chuck Todd wrote that on a Substack this morning. He talked about mission-driven jobs, and I'm really sorry. But I know you didn't mean to steal his
in my
idea,
defense, how many times prior to Chuck Todd have I talked about Thomas Piketty and regulated
you actually have.
It's one of my themes. The teachers' unions and regulated capitalism. Those are my big themes, Jim. 877-301-8970. What do you think about this? Do you think that there's a different perspective on whether you have to knock yourself out anymore because you want to be able to go?
Can I tell you something, by the way? Let me sound like an old fogey.
Yeah, we are.
I did work like a dog. We've talked about, I was a legal services lawyer. It was my first job, working around the clock. You were doing journalism.
I was a reporter.
Really but here's the part that is going to sound old fogey-esque. I think I can say, and don't ridicule me, because I'm going to say the same thing about you. I think we've both been relatively successful in our careers. I've had a number of careers. You've basically done.
I have no friends.
Don't say what you're.
It's my problem.
But let me just tell you what I think.
Yeah.
I think, and I had some great employers. I had some horrible employers. I stuck it out because I cared a lot about the work. I think had I not worked like that when I was young and right out of law school, I don't think I would have had that kind of success in my life. So now the flip side is, while I'm pretty convinced of that, I'm jealous of the fact that the same 24-year-old today who goes to work at a legal services office like I did at 24 years old is not going to take any crap, is not going to work 18 hours a day because they want to have a life. I didn't care about that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, well, I think it was also very different because I'm so old. I mean, I was like the first generation of women that started working. So, if you're in an office with 30 guys and you're the only girl, you tend to feel a need.
You were in a number of places, weren't you?
Yes, I was. And
were you the first woman columnist at the Globe?
I was the first woman columnist at the Boston Herald.
I meant it to her. I'm sorry. I meant it to Herald.
And I was the only woman in the newsroom for most of my time. There were two of us at one point. For a while, I was the only woman in there.
Can I tell a quick story about that lunch you had? I think you've told this on the air. Marjorie calls me one day. Stop me if I have to stop in the middle. She gets a call from the bosses and they want to take her out to lunch.
That's right.
And
I'm gonna panic.
And she calls me on the phone. We just started working together, and she says, "I'm going to get fired. I can't. They wouldn't be taking me to lunch if I wasn't getting fired." And they took you to lunch to give you a big raise.
Big raise.
Because they're worried about being sued.
Well,
right? Isn't that because
what happened,
they had no women in the workforce?
What happened is they had another woman. She was at the State House. They had a woman at the State House and City Hall, and then me in the newsroom. And the woman at the State House, God love her, she sued. She sued because she was paid less than everybody. At which point it allowed me to realize I was paid less than every single soldier of the
But not after that lunch.
Was a man. And they gave me a big raise because they were afraid that everybody else was going to get sued for paying people unequally. Do we have to take a quick break?
We do.
We do have to take a quick break.
It happens every day, and then we'll take your calls.
No, we talk too much, Jim. Anyway, 877-301-8970 is the number. Young people starting out, Gen Z are starting out now in their profession. They want to have time, as one of these people said, for pickleball games. They do not want to be interrupted by the boss during their pickleball gym or any of their extracurricular activities. Do you think that that's going to get you somewhere, or is that kind of crazy? 877-301-8970. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We'll be right back.
The world takes you outside your borders.
Johannesburg,
Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan,
Kyiv, Chiba, Japan. Because what happens there?
When it comes to EVs, Chinese cars eat everyone's lunch.
Affects what happens at home.
The fact that the sides are talking again, that's a positive step.
I'm Marco Werman.
And I'm Carolyn Beeler. Listen each weekday to The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition in Hallbrook now through December 13th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250, masshumanities.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow. That would be Friday. We are not at the library on Tuesday because of Veterans Day, and then we go back to the regular schedule. Mayor joins us at the library on the 18th. Yo-Yo Ma joins us at the library the next day to talk and to play. If you're just tuning in, we're talking with listeners about this. Well, we haven't talked to listeners yet, but we're about to. About this divide among the American workforce between people who are happy to lose their jobs if it means keeping some semblance of sanity in other areas of your life versus people who are called job huggers who see an economy in decline and decide to sacrifice a degree of happiness for the security of the job that they have. The number's 877-301-8970. Where do you fall?
We got a couple of good emails here.
What are
Jeff in Andover, I'm just glad the media isn't blaming millennials anymore. We have mortgages and back pain. We aren't the young ones
That's
anymore.
pretty good.
And then here's Adam from New Hampshire. Are these the same people that want me to pay for their college, their transportation, and everything else because they're such snowflakes they can only work a job they are passionate about? How about no? Stop living in the most sought-after parts of the city. Stop believing you'll die if you don't go out every weekend. And stop buying all those $5 coffees.
877-301-8970. Jim in Jersey, as in New Jersey. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, guys. Oh, I got through. First time, long time. I love you guys.
We're really glad you got through. Hi.
Okay, I am in the middle of between two jobs right now. I just left a job. I'm going to start one next week. And I've had a number of jobs, like 38, 39. I've had a number of jobs. And the one that I just had was particularly painful. It's going to sound ageist, but I think it was particularly painful because I had no shortage. I had 4 generations in one team. I had Gen Alpha reporting to me. I'm a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
I reported to a Gen Xer who reported to a boomer. And they all have extraordinarily different outlooks and values on what work-life balance is or isn't. And it was particularly painful watching a Gen Alpha report to a baby boomer, et cetera, because they like you were saying before, they have very different value systems and what they look for in a job, how they work, when they want to work, and their attitudes, et cetera. It was amazing. And it was so different than having, again, I know it sounds ageist, it sounds a little maybe inappropriate, but it's very different than having someone who's a couple of years your senior or junior on one team.
That is a great analysis to start this off, the multi-generational thing. But before you go, Jim, since you say you're a millennial supervisor, an anonymous texter said right before you called, I love what I do. I just hate having a millennial supervisor. Signed, Gen Z worker. I don't think they're talking about you, Jim. That was a great call. Hope you get through again soon. 877-301-8970.
Yeah, I think that people's obligations obviously mean a lot more in their attitude about this.
Than they did when we were starting in the workforce.
This is a person who says, I work in education but lost my full-time job. As a result, I am job-hugging all the part-time education work I can to survive. The economy doesn't look good for the next couple of years. And when you have a mortgage, health concerns, et cetera, that require you about keeping the money coming in regardless of how you treated, you're stuck in a very difficult cycle. And that's very, very true. I think, once you're shackled to that, the big mortgage and children and childcare and healthcare costs, your options diminish.
Job hugging. That's a great expression, by the
Job
way. Don't you
hugging.
love that
Yeah.
term? I didn't even hear it until a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but that's why it's interesting that people in their 20s, I mean, some kids do have mortgages and kids in their 20s, but that's not typical. And that's why you think that's the time to really knock your socks off so that when you do have children, you get a little bit more slack for not going to work when the kid's got a doctor's appointment or something. You know what I mean?
I think so.
Kate in Hanover, thank you for calling.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, guys. I just want to something that confuses me a lot about the older generation is why wouldn't you want things to be better for your kids? If I have a kid and they only have to work 4 days a week and they never have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, then I will have succeeded as a parent. I feel like there's a lot of weird jealousy almost from an older generation. And they have this mentality of like, well, I suffered, so you should also suffer.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you want your kids to have it better?
Well, it depends on what have it better means. What you described, Kate, has great appeal. You're basically saying all that should really matter to you is if your kids are happy and have, decent jobs but are happy in their lives. Some people equate, success at work with that's the criterion around which everything circulates. But yours is a much healthier kind of way, and I think yours is. It's
gotten worse, though, Kate, hasn't it? Well, financially, it's gotten worse. Everything is so much more expensive now that you want your kids to have it better, but I think you're afraid that if they don't make a certain amount of money, they won't be able to, get a condo.
Yeah, how about that, Kate? How about Marjorie's point?
I completely agree, but whose fault is that? Is that the kid's fault? No. Is that the parent's fault?
Yeah.
No. That's the job's fault. That's the economy's fault. That's the government's fault.
Yeah, but whoever's fault it is, Marjorie's point with which you agree, is an important one, right? I mean, part of happiness, by your definition, is to be able to afford decent things, and it's harder and harder. Kate,
Well,
that was a great call, too.
I think
Thank you.
What we were just talking about with Chuck Todd is that we have been suckers and bought this idea that, that all this trickle-down stuff was going to rescue everybody and it was going to be fine. It's done just the opposite. Nothing trickled down. People just were greedy and they hoarded their money, and wages
the wealth
got
divide is
stagnant.
greater than ever, yeah.
Alex in Newton, thank you for calling.
Hello, Alex in Newton.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, yeah.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I am a nurse practitioner. I'm 37 years old, and I feel like, it's one of those jobs that once you reach a certain level, you can have a lot of kind of like work-life balance and like meaning, and still make a decent living. So.
Have you had that? Have you had that experience? Obviously, I guess that's what you're saying, right?
It is, and I feel like I recently started a job where I feel like all those things kind of aligned really well. And I work now I work in primary care, at one of the BI offices, and I think like over the course of my career as a nurse, becoming a nurse practitioner, I certainly had to pay my dues and work my ass off and not sleep and kind of kill myself to get here. But I think it was kind of worth it.
That is great. I mean, that sounds great, and it's wonderful you achieved it, Alex. Thanks for sharing your experience with us. We really appreciate it. That's a pretty great outcome, isn't it? You worked like crazy, and at a relatively, actually a very young age, 37 years old, you figure you've been able to have it all, that kind of thing. Good work and been able to slow down a little bit and enjoy your life. That's a pretty good thing, right?
Yeah. Well, you hope you get there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know how many people actually do. Here's a teacher from Boston Public Schools who says she loves her job, works very hard, gets paid. Yeah, the teachers in Boston do get paid decent wages, but she says she still can't afford. I think they're over $100,000. Most of the teachers, they still can't afford to live in the city, and they're looking for a place to move, which makes me very, very sad. And that's definitely true. Even if you're making $120,000, you got a spouse that's making some money. What's the average price of a home in Boston now? Is it $800,000?
I don't know. It's really closing in on $1 million. Here's a good one, anonymous texter. Keep in mind that many of the boomers started having kids when they were older, and their kids are seeing them now struggle to pay bills, still working into their 70s to just survive. These kids don't want the same fate, so they're enjoying life sooner. The increasing wealth gap isn't helping either.
That's a great point, too.
Yeah, it is.
How many people do you know that are working well into their 70s and they want to downsize, but they can't downsize because they can't afford to move anyplace else?
Marjorie and I were
so
discussing...
there are these 4-bedroom houses with
the other
big
day,
lawn.
Marjorie and I were discussing off air, when this job dries up, do we do bagging at Whole Foods or Market Basket? And we decided we should try to do it at the same place so we could keep, the relationship going and whatever.
Yeah, people are afraid. They want to keep their health insurance. They don't want to worry about Medicare Part D or Part
How
A,
do you
whatever
feel?
it is.
I have very mixed. I've said this before in the air. When you see a really old person bagging your groceries, first of all,
terrible.
you don't want. You feel terrible because you feel they were forced back into the workforce. But when you talk to some of these people, they're thrilled. Thrilled to be doing anything rather than sitting around the house. So on balance, I'm with you. You feel terrible for the person. They should be able to relax and enjoy their life.
I have a neighbor who works for the state. I think he might have just retired, but he bags groceries at the Star Market. I think he likes it. It's a little extra income.
Yeah.
Chit chat with people.
Chuck Grassley is going to be bagging groceries eventually in Iowa. He decides he's going to work till he's 100 and then going to do the bagging thing. Ellen in the car, you are next on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, good morning, guys.
Hi to you, too.
First, I feel 100% like the plight of young people today with like not being able to afford housing or anything like that. My husband and I literally constantly put away money so we can maybe help with like a down payment. Financially wise, it's not the best. But as far as like kind of throwing all of your efforts in while you're young, you can kind of do it. Like I will talk to my daughter who's in college and, she went out for all the Halloween festivities and, she was up at the crack studying. And I would think to myself, I used to be able to do that and get up for a full-time job, hang out at a bar until 1 a.m, get up at, be to work by 7. I couldn't do that to save my life now. And it's just so much harder the older you get. And I think that's why parents encourage kids to kind of work while you're young. Because because you don't want to have to work when you're older, and it's not even like you might not even be able to do it because you might not physically be able to bag groceries.
You know, that's a great point. We were talking with Ed Markey the other day.
I was just going to say, you asked Ed Markey that.
I said to him, okay, if you run again and you win, you'll be 86 when you get out, when you're done. And I presume he wouldn't run again when he's 86. And he said, don't you want to, like, do something? But he said this is what he does. His hobby is politics.
This is, he said it's what he loves. It's not just his job. It's what he loves.
He doesn't play golf. He doesn't do anything else. Listen to this one.
Hey, that was great. Thank you for the call.
This is from Sarah in Waltham. I killed myself in my 20s and early 30s, sacrificing a lot of my free time in the process. After 3 layoffs, I started to think differently. Why was I giving so much to these companies that could dispense of me so easily like any other number on a spreadsheet? I also saw my dad work like a total nut for decades, do extremely well, but then retire. And despite being very physically healthy, he had some mental health issues, and she attributes those to decades of being a workaholic and repressing his emotional issues. No thanks.
Well, the flip side of that, though, is I think we could agree there was much more when loyalty was demonstrated by a worker a generation ago. It was much more often reciprocated by the employer than it is now. Would you not say that?
Well, I think you weren't as worried about your investors. It's always about what money is going to go back to the investors.
Did you see that the deal that these shareholders at Tesla are about to decide, if they do with Musk what he wants and the goals are met, he will be signing a $1 trillion contract. It's not a typo in my voice. A $1 trillion contract with Tesla.
Like I said, we're suckers. We just, I think it's dawning on us. I think that's part of what the Mondami thing was about. But I mean, it's taken us 40 years to figure this out.
Yeah, you know what I do, just so people don't send texts and criticize me since I criticize Musk? I make sure that at least 30% of the time I'm driving the Tesla, I'm angry. So because I feel that I owe that to those who believe that income inequality, as do I, is way out of control. Ricky in a car, thanks for your patience and thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Hi, yeah, I'm Gen Z. I work a job. I go home on social media and only see influencers and my friends who are at the beaches and going to concerts. And it makes it hard to be motivated to go to work the next day when back in your day, I don't think that people were doing that. Everyone around you was going to the job and working harder, so you didn't see this alternative to that lifestyle.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ricky. Don't you wish they'd stop sending you pictures of beaches and concerts? I mean, I would find that really annoying. I wouldn't like that at all. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't want to see it, but it's this whole brain rot generation, right? So I'd so much rather.
That's almost as good as job hugger. That's a good one. Hey, Ricky, thanks for the call.
That's a great call.
I can't read the first line of this top text, which is great. Can you read the first line on the Comrex?
There it is. No, it's down a little bit.
It's frustrating.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys. It's frustrating when older generations talk about the behaviors of younger generations when it comes to costs and works. I think it's directed at us. As a younger generation person, meaning the writer, everything feels rigged against us. Higher ed, housing, childcare, and capital letters. Everything else is astronomically more expensive. Boomers, which Marty and I both are, were able to pay for college with summer jobs, which is true, by the way.
Yes, it is true.
Younger generations are saddled with debt, not to mention facing a climate and constitutional crisis. For prior generations to act like the equations of the past should be adhered to by younger generations is ridiculous. Perhaps if our society and economy really worked for people, they would act differently. That was a brilliant text.
Yeah, it was a brilliant
absolutely
text.
Right.
But I think I don't think it is the same now at all for kids
that
who are in
he
their
or
20s
she or
and
they
30s.
are saying it's not.
It's not the
well,
same
that was
at
the
all.
point of the text.
Yeah, it's much different. I mean, you could buy things for $100,000 when I was in my 30s. That's all over now, isn't it?
Well, if you want to move to Nebraska or something, or that. Do you ever look at those real estate things like in other states, like places you would not want to go, kind of thing?
Yeah, you could go move to Nebraska.
Yeah, you could.
You could move to South Dakota. Isn't Christy Nome from South Dakota?
She is, but she's not there anymore.
I think she was Snowflake Queen or something like
Where'd
that.
she kill the dog? In South Dakota?
I think it was in South Dakota.
Where'd she kill the goat?
The goat. Same gravel pit. She dragged them both back to the gravel pit. There's something wrong with that woman. Let me tell you, she and Stephen Miller, something wrong there. Listen to this. I love my children, but I believe that we are raising pets. We only have 2 children. We don't want them to suffer. Of course, children shouldn't suffer. However, you don't grow unless you have some challenges. Our children buy lunches every day as opposed to making their lunches. That's our fault. we did this.
So this is a really touching note from Jamie,
Yep.
who is, is sort of like our lead producer. I'll sponsor Jim to move to Nebraska. Please go.
That's right.
That's really lovely.
Jamie can't take it anymore,
No,
Jim.
no, I didn't take it that way at all. I thought it was a really loving thing that the cost of living is lower. I might enjoy it. You ever been in Nebraska? You drove across the country.
I did, but we don't stop in Nebraska.
Okay, fine.
Here's Buster. I want my kids to have more and better than me, so I go visit them, leave their lights on, turn up their heat in the winter, and leave a window open and break the occasional dish. They have those ads on TV. You've probably seen them in the Sunday morning talk shows if you watch those, which I don't watch anymore because they're pointless, I've decided. But anyway, if you do watch them, you see this about worrying about turning into your parents, repeating the same things.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Suddenly you
I think
find
it's an
yourself,
insurance
turn off the
commercial.
light, turn off the
Yeah,
light.
I know,
Will you
it's great.
please turn the heat down?
great.
What's the thermostat?
It's actually a very
sweater.
clever commercial. I like that a lot. Is that Progressive Insurance? I don't know
I
what
don't
it is.
know.
Connor in Rhode Island. Welcome, Connor. Hi.
Hey, good morning. So just something that I wanted to bring into the conversation is just is a huge difference between now and when you all were growing up is just in the economy, right? We've experienced a huge deindustrialization in this country, particularly in the Northeast and the Rust Belt, right? So if you're getting out of high school, you could get a job that pays half decent at a factory where you're making interesting things is producing things that people are buying. They're producing tangible goods. It's a good union job, right? You can get involved civically through your union. Now, young people, right, if they right out of high school, where are you going to work? You're going to work at Chipotle. You're going to work at McDonald's. You're going to work at a kiosk in the mall. Just the qualitative and quantitative differences between those jobs is huge. So what's the point in staying at a job at Chipotle versus, when you brought up a company being loyal. So at those old factory jobs, you'd be guaranteed a pension, right? Particularly through the union.
Exactly right.
At Chipotle, you're not getting a pension. You're not getting a raise. There's really no possibility to go up into management and climb the corporate ladder. So, just the qualitative difference between a good factory job with the union versus now working like a service-oriented job at a fast food restaurant or whatever, it's just a huge difference for young people that are entering the job market.
It's a great
out of high school and might not have a college degree, right? Because not everyone is going to be working in a law office, right?
Connor, that was great.
No, it's
that was great.
It's a
By the way,
great
here's
point.
the text saying virtually what Connor is saying. I think young workers have seen the fact most companies do not have your back anymore, so they have little incentive to work hard. Both that and Connor. You were great, Connor. Thanks.
I have a perfect attendance record at my Durfee High School graduation.
You go to
reunions.
graduation every year?
Reunions. I go to reunions.
I mean, that's what I meant. I don't mean
every 5
graduate.
years.
I mean,
Perfect attendance.
you do?
I certainly do.
I've never been to one.
Well, there you go. Anyway, a lot of the people I know, there were very few kids who went to college from my high school.
Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of them did go to work at factories or they did go to work in the trades. And because you could afford things, they had a very different life. I mean, it's like, or my cousins that worked for the city of Fall River, they all laugh. I mean, they're all retired now.
Because they retired at like 45 years old,
with
right?
pensions, and they all, here she comes, college girl, working two jobs.
Well, you know what Connor said when you just echoed, the disappearance of the defined benefit pension is a huge change
and people
in American
retired
life.
at 55, they retired at 60, they had pensions and they had health care that they're going to have for the rest of their lives. And they could, the golden years, we were supposed to go on all those cruises and stuff like that.
Well, can I tell you, I mean, it's not that bad. We both have a healthy pension from our time in the private sector on the other radio stations. Mine's $282 a month. And I did the math on that. That comes to about $3,400 a year before taxes, so it's probably about $2,700.
Yeah.
So that I think that'd be fine, actually.
Okay.
That is a pension. Do you know that we have a pension from our first radio thing?
Yeah.
You'd know that, right?
It's the best one I have.
It's because she only worked at the Herald for 30 years.
Herald
so
went bankrupt.
Oh, that's right.
Their
I forgot
pensions
about
are with
that.
the federal government now.
By the way, they were great calls and texts. Thank you, all of you. Very thoughtful.
Well,
we appreciate
did
it.
actually go bankrupt. I think it did. I think it did go bankrupt.
And then the
Otherwise,
state had
our
the federal
pensions-
government.
Federal government had to take over our pensions. Let me tell you, they're really generous. Okay, we are done.
That was the same place, by the way. Do you remember that cut off your health insurance while you were on the air? Your boss, Joe Shaka, I think it was, called the your voicemail when he knew you couldn't answer the phone and told he was cutting off your health benefits, and you were the provider of health to your 3 kids.
I bled for them, Jim.
Yeah.
Bled for them.
That was a nice act by him.
Anyway.
That was really nice.
We say goodbye. No. We're going to. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
We say goodbye to people who are listening on
NPM. There a little bit.
As you did. Make sure to tune in to the fabulous 413 starting at 3 in the afternoon. The show continues here in Boston, coming up after the noon news and 89.7 GBH. Former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety Andrea Cabral is going to join us. I am Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, offering PPO and HMO Medicare Advantage plans with a broad network of doctors and hospitals. BlueCrossMA.com/go. Celebrate the Halloween season with spooky stories and zombie history. Watch Things That Go Bump in the Night at 9, followed by Exhumed, a history of zombies on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head of Hour 2 of BPR. We'll start the noon hour with Andrea Cabral, former Public Safety Secretary and Suffolk County Sheriff, as the state's highest court appears reluctant to order a pay raise for lawyers serving indigent criminal defendants. Plus, Massachusetts U.S. Attorney and the Attorney General of Massachusetts go at it.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then retired federal judge Nancy Gertner joins with reaction to yesterday's arguments in the Supreme Court case involving Trump's tariffs. Plus, her take on a split within liberal justices around how to respond to abuses in the Trump era. Plus, it is November, which means playwright Ryan Landry is back in town. The Gold Dust Orphan talks Jonathan Bailey as the sexiest man alive on People magazine and previews this year's holiday show called Sweeney Claus. It's all next on an action-packed second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. The Federal Aviation Administration says it will reduce air traffic by 10% across some of the country's busiest airports to maintain safety during the government shutdown. This as it deals with persistent staffing shortages of air traffic controllers. NPR's Joel Rose has more.
The FAA is planning to reduce air traffic in 40 high-volume markets beginning on Friday. FAA Administrator Brian Bedford says the agency wants to reduce the pressure at those airports before safety is compromised.
We're not going to wait until we see something flashing red to say, oh, we should take action now.
The FAA has already been delaying flights at some airports because of staffing shortages among air traffic controllers. Those controllers are required to work without pay during the shutdown, but some have taken on second jobs and many are calling out sick. Joel Rose, NPR News, Washington.
The Trump administration says the partial amount of November's SNAP food assistance benefits it will distribute from contingency funds will be higher than first thought, with recipients getting, at most, 65% of their normal benefits. The USDA was ordered by 2 federal judges last week to use the fund to pay out benefits amid the government shutdown. This after the left-leaning Center on Budget and Policy Priorities found that the USDA's original analysis wouldn't use all of the funds and would have left some recipients with no payments this month. Former Speaker of the House and California Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi says she won't seek re-election in 2027. NPR's Barbara Sprunt reports her departure marks the end of an era in Congress.
First elected in 1987, Pelosi would go on to become one of the most effective leaders of the Democratic Party. She cemented her place in the history books in 2007 when she was elected to become the first woman to serve as Speaker of the House. She could reliably deliver Democratic votes on must-pass legislation when necessary, although her first speakership came at a complicated time with a looming financial crisis. She reclaimed the gavel in 2019. During her 10 years as Speaker, she oversaw the passage of landmark legislation, including the Affordable Care Act, and enacted trillions in new spending as part of the American Rescue Plan. Barbara Sprunt, NPR News, Washington.
Pope Leo says U.S. immigration officials have to respect the rights of migrants. NPR's Jason DeRose has more.
Pope Leo spoke to a group of reporters just outside Rome and expressed concern about the mass arrests and deportations taking place in the United States under the Trump administration. To underscore his point, Leo referred to a passage from the Gospel of Matthew heard in many Catholic churches recently.
Jesus says very clearly, at the end of the world, we're going to be asked, how did you receive the foreigner? Did you receive him and welcome him or not?
The Pope was specifically responding to immigration authorities not allowing migrants arrested in Chicago to receive Holy Communion.
NPR's Jason DeRose. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Food pantries are starting to see increased demand and donations as a result of the disruption in federal food assistance. At the Sandwich Food Pantry, 4 new clients signed up last week alone compared to the usual 1 or 2 a month. So says Director Gigi Ridgely.
We absolutely had more donations. And thank God, because we got more clients too, so. And even our donations now are going as far as they used to because food is so high. I mean, where you used to pay $2 for something, now you're paying $3 or $4 for that same item.
She says she expects demand to increase as people who receive their SNAP benefits later in the month begin to run short of food. The Trump administration says it will provide half the usual food benefit in November following a court order to use contingency funds for the program. And a move to eliminate outdated and offensive language referring to people with disabilities from Massachusetts state laws has cleared the House yesterday, setting the stage for the bill to possibly reach the governor's desk more than 15 years after it was first proposed. The State House News Service reports the bill will make clear to people with disabilities that Massachusetts is a welcoming state so they won't be offended by language. Joint Committee on Children, Families, and Disabilities Chair Representative Jay Livingstone says the bill removes all variations of terms such as handicap, disabled, and mental retardation and replaces them with person-first language like person with a disability. 48 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
He's Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow, not on Tuesday, though, because it's Veterans Day and the building is closed. The mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us on the 18th from noon to 1 at the library, and Yo-Yo Ma performs in person at the Boston Public Library on November 19th. How great is that? Hello
pretty
again,
great.
Jim.
Not pretty great. Really great. Here now via Zoom is Andrea Cabral. Andrea is the former sheriff of Suffolk County, former Secretary of Public Safety in the Commonwealth. Hello, Andrea.
Hello, Jim. Hello, Marjorie.
Hey there.
Hello, Andrea Cabral. So we've been hearing for quite some time about the plight of the people that are, they're not public defenders, but they're the lawyers that take the excess cases involving public defenders not being able to pay enough money. And what did the Supreme Court in Massachusetts do?
Well, there was a hearing on where you have CPCS, which is the Committee for Public Counsel Services, the state's public defender's office. The bar advocates essentially work, for lack of a better term, not work under them, but do the public defender work largely in the district courts in the Commonwealth. So the CPCS attorneys were on one side in this argument before SCOTUS. the district attorney's office in Suffolk County and the AG's office were on the other side, essentially arguing that the Supreme Court of the United States has the authority to, on its own, increase the rate that bar advocates are being paid. Now, just for a little perspective, 80% of the cases that are disposed of, criminal cases that are disposed of in the Commonwealth, are disposed of in the district court. That is where the bar advocates practice. So when we talk about the bar advocates, this isn't just a marginal group of lawyers representing indigent defendants. These are the lawyers that are doing 80% of the criminal work in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the Supreme Judicial Court's response at the hearing seems they were understandably very skeptical about whether or not they have the authority to do it. There's a separation of powers. People who hear me on the show know that I lament what seems to be the lack of separation of powers at the national level, with Congress ceding its authority to the Trump administration, along with the justices of the Supreme Court of the United States. RSJC is very mindful of those very distinct boundaries. Only the legislature can decide how to spend money that is appropriated. The authority of the courts is to interpret the law. That's why when this first happened, our Supreme Judicial Court came up with what's called the LaValle standard, which is that process that the courts have been engaging in since they lost a lot of the bar advocates over this pay raise, in determining who should be released when a certain point is reached where they still don't have an attorney, and then subsequently whether or not those cases will be dismissed if still there is no attorney to represent them. So in defense of CPCS's position, they were arguing that this is a constitutional crisis, and that the lack of attorneys and the lack of action by the legislature to come forth with a reasonable, what should be considered to be, especially compared to other states, a reasonable raise, constitutes a constitution-level problem that the SJC should intervene in. Very understandably, the AG's office, the DA's office, and the justices pushed back on that, saying that if they cross that line and they start telling the legislature how to spend money, that is essentially one branch of government usurping the role of another, which is exactly what people are so upset about at the federal level.
So let me just emphasize one fact that you mentioned and then ask you a question, Andrea Cabral. First of all, people know there is a constitutional obligation for government to provide lawyers in criminal cases to people who are indigent and can't afford a lawyer. As Andrea said a second ago, these bar advocates, private sector attorneys doing this defense work, were making insanely less than surrounding states in New England before the legislature acted, and after the legislature acted, they are still making insanely less than their regional colleagues. So yeah, they acted, but very minor way. Here's the thing I don't understand at all. Why is the Suffolk DA's office, where you used to work a while ago, why are they on the side of this that they're on? Why? I don't get it.
I think it's probably the usurpation of authority.
What do they care? Why do they care?
I think they do. I mean, the DA's offices, they are part of sort of the executive branch of government, not the governor's office executive branch of government. But the notion that the courts might overstep into an area where they don't have authority should be concerning to any prosecutorial agency. Now different, it's that's one DA's office that's involved in this,
I know
right?
that.
There are other DA's offices that probably are not filing amicus briefs or not, entering into the argument because they feel as though that they should be on the other side of it. So,
well, let me just stay with this for a second. When I say I don't get it, I mean I really don't get it. Meaning that if the Suffolk DA's position prevails, then fewer and fewer bar advocates will represent people charged by the DA's office, which means more and more people charged by the DA's office are going to be released from custody or totally go free, people who the DA's office thought committed crimes, which is why they charge them to begin with. So if anything, it would seem to me, and I'm assuming I'm missing something. I heard your argument that if anything, if they would be involved, they'd be on the other side wanting the bar advocates to be paid so people be represented so they weren't released for lack of representation. You understand what I'm saying?
And I completely understand what you're saying. And that's a very strong argument for either staying out of it or taking the opposite position. My suspicion, and I really don't know because it's not like I've talked to any of the DA's offices about this.
Yeah.
But my suspicion is that there was first an argument made by the AG's office that the process itself has been working. I mean, the number of people who remain undefended or unrepresented has dropped.
Yeah, it has.
Actually, it was 3,000 in the summer. It's down to 900
That's
now.
correct, yeah.
They're basically arguing that the process that has ensued, that the LaValle process has worked to get people representation and to get these cases moving. So don't overstep on such a major thing when we need more time to see how the process is playing out. But I also suspect that, in some ways it's a way to force the legislature to act. Because we've talked about this before. I don't understand why they dug their heels in on this and why they're sort of setting themselves against these lawyers who do the public's work. And so, the notion, the court has some options, right? The court can further sort of rein in the LaValle standard, and that's what the CPCS, I think the CPCS attorney asked for that as well. They can say, listen, cases now are going to be dismissed with prejudice. We're not going to give the DA's office the opportunity to bring the case back when there are enough attorneys to represent people. They can do a number of things that basically squeezes the legislature. What I don't understand is why the legislature is going to wait until someone's case is dismissed and then someone is seriously hurt by that person again or killed. And then they get the blowback, the political blowback that then causes them to act. Why wait for there to be another victim? I don't understand it either.
One last thing to close the loop. Two things. One, we're going to reach out to Kevin Hayden, who's the Suffolk DA, so we're not speculating, and we'll let you know tomorrow as soon as he gets back to us why they're on the side they're on. And number two, we should say the legislature, in my opinion, did one right thing. While the reimbursement for these lawyers is still pathetic, they did give additional money to the Committee for Public Counsel Services so that the current split, 20% represented by public defenders, 80% by private lawyers, the 20% will be higher. In any case, we're talking to Andrea Cabral. So Attorney General Andrea Campbell was on our show a couple of days ago, and she was asked by one of us if she'd support a state law banning law enforcement authorities at all levels, including the federal level, from wearing masks when performing their duty in Massachusetts. Here's what our Attorney General, meaning the state Attorney General, had to say.
To be able to implement that against ICE officials, nearly impossible. Our authority in holding ICE officials accountable is much more challenging than holding, say, our state police or local municipal leaders accountable, or local law enforcement, I should say, accountable. If there's something in the context of local law enforcement, state police, I have more authority there. In the context of ICE, this would be your U.S. attorney. That's the U.S. attorney's job. They're not doing that. They're not doing that.
Well, the U.S. Attorney didn't like that, and Leah Foley, the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, responded. Bring people up to speed where this thing is, Andrea.
Well, the response was, unfortunately, of the Trump administration. The first thing that puzzled me was, I believe ICE falls under the Department of Homeland Security. Am I wrong about that?
I think that's right.
So, yeah, Kristi Noem.
Yeah. So my first concern was, why is the U.S. Attorney responding on behalf of ICE? That should.
Well, she was called out.
If there was going to be one, I don't understand. And the reason I say that is because historically, the U.S. Attorney has always, on certain kinds of cases, had to work with local law enforcement. And the U.S. Attorney is appointed. The U.S. Attorney isn't elected like the Attorney General, who has to respond at a number of different levels to things that go on within the state of Massachusetts. Up till now, I would say it would have been absolutely unheard of for a U.S. Attorney to respond in that way with those with the words that she used. It was sort of things like, well, I would hope that she understands that the supremacy clause that prohibits her from arresting federal officials for doing their jobs is, that's what she should be paying attention to. And she sort of, the response was disrespectful and demeaning. Like I said, fairly typical of Trump administration. But why, when you're always going to be in the position on certain kinds of cases to rely on state and local law enforcement, would you do that to defend an agency that doesn't strictly fall under your purview? If the Secretary of Homeland Security feels compelled to respond to the AG in Massachusetts, then fine. I don't understand why you would do that. And it speaks to my feeling that there's only an audience of one for all of these people who are supposed to be representing the entirety of the country. They're only sort of representing Trump's views. So I thought it was inappropriate for her to take, for a U.S. Attorney Foley to take that tack and respond. And it was also unnecessary because, I don't know that anything that A.G. Campbell said warranted a response from an appointed official from an agency as large a law enforcement agency as the Department of Justice, in the context of the state of Massachusetts.
By the way, we should say that earlier this morning, we should have done it yesterday. Earlier this morning, we invited the U.S. Attorney on the show. We haven't heard back yet, but as soon as we do, we'd welcome her to present her side of this discussion.
You know what drives me nuts? As many people, like the Attorney General pointed out, police officers have their names and they're not wearing masks unless it's a riot gear situation. Other people are not wearing masks. Judges have been threatened. All sorts of people have been threatened. Politicians have been threatened. So why is ICE supposedly the only ones that can run around with masks on? It's just a ridiculous argument.
That's the point that the AG was making, is that transparency when you're in public office is hugely important, especially when you have the right to arrest people and take away their liberty. And I'm sure that she was also sort of talking about in light of some of the things that we have seen ICE agents do. And that's part of the reason why I found it so inexplicable that the U.S. Attorney would be the person to respond to the AG here in Massachusetts.
Again, we're anxious to hear back from the U.S. Attorney, and we'll let you know if we do.
So here's a story out of Quincy. Apparently, voters in Quincy are very upset with what the mayor's going on was doing over there because they went to the polls Tuesday, and they got rid of a lot of candidates on the city council that are in his sway, let's put it that way. But just to keep people updated on Quincy, it's like another day, another story. We first started talking about the Mayor Koch of Quincy when he dedicated $850,000 of public money to commission these two huge Catholic statues, like 10 feet high, in these weird outfits, supposedly, Angel Gabriel or Michael the Archangel or some crazy thing to put in front of the police department. He got in trouble for that.
Well, it stated. The court ruled in favor of the civil liberties.
Can't do it. Then he proposed giving himself a wage hike, which would have given him a 79% raise. And apparently the city clerk discounted more than a third of the signatures submitted in a ballot initiative to get rid of that raise. Now we pick at the Globe today and learn that the mayor, this would be Thomas Koch, took tens of thousands of dollars in illegal campaign donations, including money from businesses, anonymous donors, and apparent straw donors, adding, as the Globe put it, to the latest swirl of controversies surrounding the South Shore's longtime executive. He apparently told the Globe he did not know his campaign had taken illegal donations.
But he agreed to repay without admitting guilt. He agreed
That's
to
right.
repay.
He agreed to repay. Yeah. He got in trouble for doing this once before. It's really incredible. I'm always sometimes surprised by the chutzpah of some of the local officials. Remember we had the police chief. What was the town where the police chief was the highest paid police chief in all of Massachusetts?
It was one of the M towns. I can't remember.
Making like $400,000.
Methuen. Yeah. Joe Solomon, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Do you know the mayor personally? Have you spoken to him about this situation? Have you weighed in on the Catholic statues?
Andrea's
what do you
think
of the Angel Gabriel outside the police station, 10 feet high?
I've never met the man. No, but I think, voters, when they do get fed up, right?
Yeah.
Make themselves heard sort of loud and clear. And yes, this was definitely like a snowball rolling downhill of a number of things that were happening. But it also, I think, usually things like this reflect dissatisfaction over time. Now, he's been mayor for 17 years.
Long time.
Yeah, and in a relatively small, I think Quincy's a city and not a town. In a relatively small city like Quincy, over 17 years, you have a lot of influence over jobs, over what happens in that city. And the fact that what happened on the city council happened, where I think 6 of 9 incumbents were essentially voted out.
Booted.
So there were a bunch of new faces. One face, which isn't exactly new, is that of Ann Mahoney, who ran against Mayor Koch last time, lost by 1,900 votes, and then was running again for city council. She's now back on the city council.
Oh, good.
She was one of the people that was elected. But the notion that in this particular election, which is not a mayoral year for Quincy, the message that voters seem to be sending is that his allies, if you run with the mayor in the good times and he takes care of you and you continue to get elected, well, then good for you. But when bad times come along, you pay for those coattails. And I think that's essentially what the Quincy voters are saying.
What?
And, like I said, it usually reflects a deeper dissatisfaction that simply gains momentum with voters when there are stories like the ones we've been reading about that are so well publicized. It tends to galvanize people and animate what might be sort of festering or underlying dissatisfaction that people don't bother to act on in other election years.
By the way, let me say very quickly, while the city council was the response in Quincy, and a not dissimilar situation,
right?
The mayor of Everett, Carlo Di Maria, improperly paid himself $180,000, according to the Mass Inspector General. He is no longer, come January, the mayor of Everett. People seem to get it. Andrea, it's good to see you. Thank you.
My Catholic saints, I'm not sure it was the angel Gabriel or Michael the archangel, but it was one of them, and it was one step too far for the citizenry of Cambridge.
Quincy, too.
Quincy. Oops, wasn't in Cambridge.
Close enough.
No Catholic statues in Cambridge, as far as I know.
Okay, good.
Okay, we've been talking with Suffolk County Sheriff Andrea Cabral, former Sheriff Andrea Cabral. Coming up after this quick break, retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
When news impacts your community,
the effects of the government shutdown are still being felt.
Trust GBH News for the full picture.
People are worried about paying their rent, paying their student loans, and eating.
Always here with ongoing coverage of the news that matters to you.
Do they choose to skip some of that food, or do they pay their heating bill or their medical bills?
Follow the story at GBH 89.7, online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Central Square Theater with Summer 1976. Pulitzer Prize winner David Auburn's play about friendship, memory, and small moments that change our lives forever. Summer 1976 through November 30th. CentralSquareTheater.org. And Rogers Fish Company, founded by Roger Berkowitz, offering an array of New England seafood and entrees shippable anywhere in the U.S. More at rogersfishcompany.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, not there Tuesday for Veterans Day. Quick update. I mentioned we'd reached out to the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, Leah Foley, to get her side of this back and forth with Attorney General Andrea Campbell. Their automatic responses saying that media inquiries outside of these functions will be considered when the lapse in appropriations ends, so we'll keep you apprised. For the latest iteration of On the Docket, we're joined now via Zoom by retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. Judge Gertner is a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a BPR contributor. Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is. Hello there, Judge Gertner. Nice to see you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Hi.
Thank you for joining us, Judge Gertner. So, thanks to oral arguments being, we can get them now. A lot of us got a chance to hear the Supreme Court talking about Trump and his tariffs and this test of his power. What did you think?
Well, I mean, it's very hard to figure out what the Supreme Court is going to do, and I have now, long ago stopped figuring out because I've been wrong so many times on this very program. It sounded like they were going to clip his wings. It sounded like there was at least a 5-4, if not 6-3, saying that he didn't have, that the statute, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, didn't give him the authority to impose what was effectively a tax. And it sounded like the originalists on the textualists, those who are looking at the language of the statute, couldn't find the word tariff in it, whereas taxes are in the Constitution and gives that power to Congress. And then Justice Gorsuch, who is concerned, who threw out Biden efforts to forgive student loan as being, beyond the president's power, and who has coined a doctrine that suggested, more power to Congress. If Congress hasn't explicitly delegated a power, then the president can't have it. So the doctrines that they were talking about seem to be doctrines that would say, hey, Trump, you can't use your emergency powers to impose tariffs, which are essentially a tax. It sounded like they were going to rule against the government, but who knows?
I would say I would put it one other way: rule against Trump. Even though you're right, formally it's the government. Because before we play some sound from Justice Gorsuch, which is what you were referencing, I want to say almost every analyst whom I respect, and the only one I hadn't heard from actually was you, that I listened to or read. Every single one of them said, for those who think that politics are going to have nothing to do with this, you're out of your mind. One of the political issues they're going to consider is the Supreme Court is seen in this country as the private law firm of the President of the United States. And is it time that they do something to salvage their reputation as an independent body? I'll get your thoughts on that in a minute, but let's play what Gorsuch had to say. You're going to hear Associate Justice Gorsuch, and then you're going to hear him, the response from Solicitor General John Sauer, who is representing the Trump administration, the United States government. Here it is.
The president's a one-way ratchet toward the gradual but continual accretion of power in the executive branch and away from the people's elected representatives.
I disagree with that, and the recent historical counterexample of Congress's termination of the COVID emergency demonstrates that the political oversight
with the president's assent,
meaningful.
With the president's assent, in fact,
once he lost it by a veto-proof majority in the Senate, I think the position moved, and I think he realized, and that's the political process working. There was a political
it takes a supermajority, a veto-proof majority to get it back.
I mean, that's not that surprising in light of what you said about, he was consistent across ideological lines with what he did to Biden, as you said, in student loans, right? That's where he is.
Right. But the So there is, on the one hand, the ideology and the doctrines that the conservative judges have espoused and has used that largely, frankly, to lead to the accretion of power that Gorsuch is lamenting. But this is one case where it really goes in the other direction. I mean, I think that there's, when we have talked about the Supreme Court in the past on this program, I said that I wondered whether the court was sort of, as they say, kicking the can down the road. Ruling for the president on emergency case after emergency case, waiting for the big one, and that they would exercise their authority to restrict the president coming down the line. I thought it might be birthright citizenship, and it may well be tariffs. In other words, this is the point at which they say we actually, forgive me, am actually a court.
Well, also, but Trump is raising the stakes. I mean, he's used terms, Judge Gertner, like a bad decision by his account would be, quote, the ruination of our nation. I mean, he hasn't quite, said the stakes are anywhere near that high around birthright citizenship or those sort of things. Right. So he's really putting it on there. He talked. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I wonder if the election Tuesday, that was so heavily a repudiation of Trump matters at all to the justices. Do they think about that?
Well, actually, that goes against ruling against Trump in this case, because they can say, well, the political process, that is, in fact, what Gorsuch was saying, the political process will deal with Trump. You don't need us to intervene.
Okay.
But they can't. While that may affect the atmosphere, the fact of the matter is they have to rule in this case. I think the two big impediments here, the difficulty here is if they rule that the tariffs are unconstitutional, there is a question of remedy, and it is a real issue about whether or not you have to pay back to the American people huge amounts of money. So that's an issue. There are always ways of wiggling out a decision against the president. You saw some of that in the conversation when they were talking about, well, after all, he has the ability to regulate trade as an emergency, to sanction people and maybe give out licenses, and maybe this fits within that category. They may try to come up with a compromise so they're not completely hitting him over the head. In other words, there's some regulation you can do, not clear what that is, but not these tariffs, and come up with some compromise because they don't want to close the door on this.
And one of the things I don't understand, Judge Gertner, is the issue around the remedy and paying back the $90 billion it's already collected. The question from Justice Coney Barrett was, wouldn't that be, quote, a complete mess? And my reaction to the question is, who cares? If something is unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. Figure it out. I mean, the implication I took away from that, and maybe this is unfair to Coney Barrett, is we may have to rule that the president did the right thing because we can't figure out how to return the money. Well, that's their problem, no?
There's another, but they could say, don't do it again. They can say the president has no power going forward, but we won't.
Make him return the money.
Retroactive, right. Which doesn't make any sense in any other case. If it was wrong to impose these tariffs, it was wrong to impose these tariffs at the beginning of his administration or now. But they could try to do that. Listen, I mean, the immunity decision and the emergency decisions suggest that this is a court that is, bending over backwards to not confront this president, bending over backwards to not confront him in so many ways. And the question is whether that animus, I can't believe that motivation rather would keep them from saying that these tariffs are unconstitutional.
Well,
it might deal with the remedy.
Can I just respond to that thing, or at least ask a question? It seems to me that the concern about confrontation, which we've discussed with you, with the president, is the fear that they rule against him and he goes ahead and does it anyway, and then there's a crisis. I understand that.
Because there's no army.
I understand that in the immunity situation, even though the decision was, in my opinion, one of the worst in American history, we're going to say he doesn't have immunity, and then he's going to do it anyway, and then what do we do? It seems to me that doesn't apply to tariffs. If they rule against him on tariffs, he can't keep collecting tariffs in violation, right?
It doesn't apply to tariffs, but it doesn't apply to tariffs. But if they order that he return the money,
right,
That's the affirmative government action that they could say nuts to you. It doesn't apply to tariffs.
Which is another good reason to not make them return the money, not just because it'd be a nightmare, but because it might be a constitutional nightmare too.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, the other thing is, which is interesting, which didn't really come up yesterday, is, a lot of the powers that he has arrogated to himself with respect to immigration have been based on this notion that there are emergencies. And there's an open question how far the Supreme Court wants to go to second guess the president's determination of an emergency. The statute that he was operating under said it has to be, that he could regulate trade in the event of a declared emergency, which this clearly wasn't, right? Trade deficits, which was one of the reasons why he wanted to do this, have been extant for, years and years and years.
50 years in a row, yeah.
Again, because I'm not a lawyer, I always look at it's such a farce to say that these things have been around for 50 years or emergencies, but it's not an emergency when somebody gets picked up by ICE and sent to a country that they don't come from, where they might be tortured. That's all these people getting deported, without due process. That's not an emergency. It just seems that this whole thing is becoming like a big joke.
Well, I mean, I think you sort of step back a little bit. What he has been doing from the moment he became president is literally unprecedented, right? He's been pushing the envelope with respect to presidential powers in every conceivable way that he can. District courts have had to deal with issues that they have never had to deal with.
Right.
Under circumstances that they have never had to deal with before, and the Supreme Court as well. It would make sense for a court to pick and choose when you want to stand up to the president, and you're right that it's one thing for a district court to rule in a given case, President, you've done something wrong. Then all of these President, you've done something wrong cases go up to the Supreme Court. And is the Supreme Court going to say you've done something wrong in all of those cases and confront him directly? They are picking and choosing their fights. That's one theory. Or they're in the tank for Trump is the other theory.
But I guess when he's wrong, why not say he's wrong and have some sense for American people that there's somebody here that's enforcing right versus wrong? I guess that's what's so depressing about this. Well, we don't want to rule against him because then we'll suppose he ignores us or something. I mean, we just saw in an election that American citizens are saying it's not just about the economy. I mean, there's different reasons, but some of it is about what they've seen, about mothers getting dragged off by ICE and stuff like that. So I don't understand why the Supreme Court, with all their power and their brains, can't stand up, you know what I'm saying, for justice. Who knows what the Supreme Court's going to do, but clearly most of the issues you're talking about have taken place, as we talked about before, on the shadow docket. These are emergencies. Right. And the question is how the court will deal with it when it comes to them, with full briefing and not an emergency. Now, I agree with you that these emergencies were emergencies for the human beings that were being wrongly detained, or emergencies for the human beings that were being sent to a country that they had no relationship with. The Supreme Court over and over again has said the emergency is somehow to the national interest. And so they're unwilling to rule on an emergency basis on behalf of ordinary citizens. One has to hope, who knows again, that when these cases come to them in the ordinary course, not in an emergency, they'll say it was wrong to send people to a third country, that it was wrong to bring in the National Guard. I don't know. I mean, it certainly is different when you deal with something on an emergency basis and you're trying to sort it through, which the Supreme Court is singularly unable to deal with. I mean, we have talked about the way they've dressed down district court judges. The Supreme Court of 9 people I don't believe, in fact, has the ability to deal with the incredible number of cases that are coming up to them. And so what they're doing is they are, ruling on the president's side over and over again. But this case came up on briefs and a formal oral argument. Yeah. Birthright citizenship is coming up on briefs and a formal oral argument. Will that be different?
I think we mentioned the last time the other thing to watch is the voting rights case, because the voting rights case could fundamentally change the balance of power in the House of Representatives. And if they need to decide that in January or February, then that will be very troubling, because then they're racing that through in order to affect the 2026 election.
Judge Gardner, one last thing. We talked to you ad nauseum about the fact the Supreme Court allowed the cases around the prosecution of Donald Trump to go on endlessly in terms of briefing, whatever, which essentially caused them to be able to disappear once he was elected. It seems to me if one of the major issues, if they're going to rule against Trump, is the $90 billion, they would want to rule as quickly as possible on this. So is it possible we don't have to wait till next June to hear what the outcome is here?
They made this expedited briefing, and that suggests they're going to move more quickly. Yeah,
Right.
if they were going to move in June, they would have a regular briefing schedule, but they made this an oral argument that would be expedited and briefing that was expedited. So I think you will see something. Not only that, the sooner they act, the less they still have to deal with what has been paid out already. But if they wait until June, there'll be even more.
Exactly.
So I think that they'll move more quickly.
We're talking to former federal judge Nancy Gardner.
So I just love this story by Jodi Kantor from the New York Times talking about the liberal justices Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson, and the debate among them about should they be outspoken like Jackson, say the boat is sinking, or should they be more strategic like Kagan, hoping that she can somehow persuade the conservatives and get smaller victories. Or if Kagan is just missing the moment because this is a lawless guy, meaning the president. What do you think about
Before
this?
you answer the question, how many of the three of them do you know, Nancy Gardner?
Well, I know all of them.
Okay.
I know two very well, one not. I
Okay.
know them, Sotomayor and Kagan I know very well.
Okay, go ahead.
If your question is what I would do,
Yeah. Whose side are you on?
I would be Jackson.
Oh, good.
Why?
I would be
Why?
Jackson.
I know why, but why?
Well, because these are unusual times, is one, and I think to some degree it's the same thing that commentators face, that all of us face here. When I want to be respectful to the Supreme Court, I want to envision that they are acting appropriately. But there have been moments over the past 9 months when I have my doubts. And so she's sort of calling them out. Now, Kagan actually has called them out in a not quite as not talking about Calvin ball, where there are no rules except for one, which is the president always wins, which is what Jackson said in one of her decisions.
great.
But Kagan has been pretty direct.
Yeah.
Has been pretty direct. So it's not like she has been hiding from that. So it may be, the degree of directness, not so much that Kagan has been not direct, and certainly Sotomayor has not. I mean, there's a question here about whether there is a meaningful way to make the conservative supermajority not go in direction, not be so extreme. In other words, if the Justice Kagan's approach, which is to get them to mitigate their positions, to compromise. For example, there were reports about the Dobbs decision where Justice Roberts, in probably any other Supreme Court justice, any other Chief Justice, would have tried to figure out a way to modulate that decision, to come up with some kind of compromise, to do it over time, chip away at it as they've been doing. He could not control the 6-person majority. He could not control them. So there's the question with Justice Kagan is, do you meaningfully think there is a possibility of your efforts to control the 6-person majority? There may be instances, there may be times and cases, but as a general matter, they have been lockstep.
You mentioned Dobbs and the repeal of Roe v. Wade. We're out of time, but I just want to say, next time you're with us, I want to talk about your response to a Globe column suggesting that they are not bulldozing precedent willy-nilly on the Supreme Court of the United States.
We are out of time, but there was a great line in the story behind the scenes at the Supreme Court. It said junior justices, and apparently Jackson's one, she has to serve on the cafeteria committee and answer the door to the justice's private conference room in case somebody knocks. Couldn't they get an intern to open the door?
I love it. No. This is sort of, baked in ceremonies of the court. It's really quite amazing. No, Jackson is the junior one, right? I mean,
yes.
Jackson,
Yeah. What is cafeteria committee? You go take the orders for lunch from the other justices? I don't know.
That's beyond my expertise, beyond my expertise.
Judge Gardner, thanks for your expertise.
Thank you. I'm sorry to rant and rave every time I talk to you, but
I rant and rave. That's okay.
I get so upset about them. Thank you very much.
Be well. Thanks.
We've been speaking with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner, senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and BPR contributor. Coming up after this quick break, it's November, which means gold dust orphan Ryan Landry has returned from P-Town to bug us. He'll join us in Studio 3.
Bug us. To be with us, I would say.
Okay, to be with us.
Thank you.
The script said bug us.
I know, but you're a free person.
Okay. He'll join us in Studio 3. Next, I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The Colorado River isn't what it was back in 1922 when the last agreement was made on how to divvy up the water among the several states it feeds.
We've got these 19th century laws and 20th century infrastructure and 21st century climate, and those things don't fit together very well.
I'm Elsa Chang. How states are renegotiating their share of the river without federal intervention on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And UMass Lowell, ranked ¡1 best value public university in Massachusetts by the Wall Street Journal and U.S. News and World Report. Learn more at uml.edu/rankings.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing coverage plans for individuals, families, employers, and retirees with benefits that help you live in your moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, not Tuesday because of Veterans Day. We're joined now by painter, playwright, past winner of the Elliot Norton Award for Sustained Excellence in Theater. That would be Ryan Landry. You also know Ryan is the founder of the great Gold Dust Orphans theatrical troupe, and of course, he's a legendary canned tomato influencer.
That's right.
The latest iteration, he hates that, of his annual holiday show is a spin on the classic Sweeney Todd called Sweeney Claus, the demon father of Sleet Street. More information at thegolddustorphans.org. Ryan Landry, we've missed you. Well, actually, one of us has missed you. It's great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
You look fabulous, by
He
the
does.
way.
He always looks fabulous.
You do.
Yeah.
I just want, speaking of looking fabulous, I want to talk about Marjorie for just a minute. She's looking primo chic. I mean,
chic.
elegance.
Oh, I've got my jacket on.
Yeah. Come to Boston. Forget the Swan boats.
That's right.
Take
That's
a ride
right.
on Marjorie. It's absolutely.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, we want to talk to you about Halloween before we talk to you about Sweeney Claus.
Halloween.
Where did you spend Halloween?
At Jennifer Coolidge's house.
How did you get an invite? We're going to have photographs of you
I've
with
known
Jennifer.
her for ever and a day. She's from Norwood.
Yeah, she's a local. She's a local.
Norwood.
Is it
We're going to have
Norwood or
photographs.
Norwell?
Whatever. No, it's one of the
those
Nors.
end towns.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
what was that like? Because we weren't invited this year.
were not.
What was that like, that
You
party?
can come with me next year if you want to. It's a ball. I mean, it's just
There they
crazy.
are.
She's got all sorts of haunted things. The house is huge. It's like a big old, crumbling mansion.
This is
kind
New
of
Orleans,
thing.
is that what you said?
Yeah, New Orleans.
And-
Yeah.
Look at her hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so I was dressed. Because Jennifer called me and said, I don't know what to do for the theme this year. And I said, well, what do you want? And she said, I want people to work harder at their Halloween costumes, which I think is a popular idea that we're kind of done with the sexy nurses and all that kind of thing. Leg Avenue, pop it off of Amazon for $45. Come on. So she said, I want to do something unforgettable, something you can't erase from your mind. So I went as my sign said, I walked in on my brother's orgy. So And so I had the Castle Grayskull, you know, from He-Man, and I had all these wind-up, X-rated wind-up toys doing all sorts of things. And then I was standing above it with big googly eyes and wearing a sort of Little House on the Prairie bonnet and a Victorian nightgown, as is my wont, James.
So you flew to New Orleans to go to this party and then flew home?
Damn
Is that
right.
how it works?
Why the hell not?
Now, we have a little bit of exclusive sound, and this may trouble you, may not, you know, knowing who you are. We heard what she had to say to people who were still there after you left. You and your friends left the party. Here's what she had to say.
Please, these gays, they're trying to murder me.
Now, is there any truth to that, or is there not?
What? Truth that I would never want to murder Jennifer. No, Jennifer's on her own planet. Oh, by the way, after she said that the theme was something you can't erase from your mind, she didn't tell anybody else at the party.
So you were it?
I was the only one who knew the theme, and so everyone was looking at me really weird because they could not understand what I was trying to do with my costume. And
did she mention the one time she was on our show like 6 or 7 years ago?
No, I'm sure she did not.
No. She did not. But
that doesn't mean it's not a burning desire to talk about it daily.
Okay, Sweeney Claus is this year's. Can we, before we get into this, let's be honest about this. The only thing we care about, are we in the show or are we not in the show?
Yes, you're in the show.
Oh, good.
And unfortunately, you've both been committed to a mental institution.
Oh, no.
And it looks bad for you, but you come back at the end. And of course, you know, Marjorie would like to end the show with a carol, but Jim wants to sing Beyonce. So, you know, Marjorie has to do quick work on Jim, and he floats to heaven and, you know, sing. I guess that's where they sing Beyonce.
You know, that's an improvement.
Quick
First
work.
of all, we're puppets in the show.
We're puppets.
And the reason that's good is because the history of
Well, you
Marjorie
have to be puppets.
Normally, you have Marjorie either, I don't know, beheading me, cutting my testicles off, or some such thing. This is an improvement.
Those are both included. Your testicles are cut off, and you are beheaded.
Okay, well, that's... So tell us about Sweeney Claus.
The audience loves
other than us.
that scene.
Well, you know, I'm just so excited about the show. I could burst. I feel so swell. I'm swollen. I am talking about a fantastic show with a brand new cast of just great orphans. Brilliant people. It's really the story of Dasher, who's a reindeer who has a side hustle as a barber. And Santa is kind of tired of his old team, so he's skinning all his reindeer and selling them to furrier companies.
Oh, no.
Not PETA approved, right?
Oh.
Santa is, unfortunately, quite evil in this show. I never really like to make Santa too much of a jolly old soul. I like him to be perverted.
Well, Sweeney Claus, that kind of captures it right there.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Are you Sweeney Claus?
No, I'm Mrs. Leavitt.
Oh, Mrs. Leavitt? And what is that character? If you
Mrs. Lovett.
Mrs. Lovett.
Mrs. Lovett is the character in Sweeney Todd, and I'm Mrs. Leavitt.
Very good.
Oh, I got it.
Very
It took
good,
me 2
okay.
times. So wait a second.
You're slow on the upswing today, James.
Because I'm going to heaven. Now,
Did you see that movie? Was that movie any good?
Sweeney Todd?
Sweeney Todd was
Not
good?
with that Johnny Depp. No. I recommend you viewers at home, or listeners at home, so sorry.
Well, viewers too.
To find the Angela Lansbury Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrific. You can get it on Amazon Prime. It's worth the $9.99. I'm telling you, and if you can't afford the $9.99, send me a message and I'll give you my codes. I want you to see this film.
Why did you say a whole new Goldust Orphans? Is there a whole new Goldust Orphans?
Well, you know, 2 moved away, 1 got pregnant, another 1 got married, so we had to bring in some new people. So you're going to see some new faces, but you're going to see a lot of the old timers too.
You know, I worry for the few people, or I don't know how many few, for people who have not gone to see. We go every year. Our whole team goes. We wouldn't miss it.
And you get stinking drunk.
Some of us do, actually. Is the talent level of your players, because I don't want them to judge the whole thing by you. Do you know what I mean there?
Well, I wouldn't want that either.
I wouldn't want it either. They are brilliant. You have brilliant singers, dancers, performers in all sorts of ways. Is that a fair statement there?
That
Yes,
sure
sir.
is. I should have brilliant performers. I pay them enough.
Okay. By the way, you don't pay us anything.
No.
We're puppets, Jim.
You've got to do something for the community, Jim.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
This is it.
It's really fun. It's really fun. It's going to be in South Boston again this year.
Oh, always. Well, until they sell. I hope they don't sell that building.
They're thinking of selling.
Yeah, well, you know, it's such a big building, and South Boston is, you know, always
very expensive.
Very expensive. expensive and it's hard to park and all
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But we have parking.
So when does this thing open?
It opens. This thing opens on November 29th.
It does, and runs through what?
So
And it runs through December 21st.
So you're down to the wire.
I am down to the gone.
And what is the website one more time to get tickets?
The Gold Dust. To get tickets, if you want to go straight to the ticket site, it's just called Ticket Tailor, like, a sewing tailor. And just type in Sweeney Claus, Ticket Tailor, and you'll find the tickets.
One of our colleagues just noticed your jacket is the perfect GBH blue. You're sort of like fading.
I'm a company girl, James.
You apparently are.
Yeah, that's very nice. It does match. How do you like our doesn't it look nice in here, all this blue?
Yes,
Everywhere.
all this advertising.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I feel so at home.
This is dangerous, but our colleagues say that they obtained sound of the two of us, that'd be me and Marjorie, rehearsing for this year's production. We'll cross our fingers.
Okay.
Here it is.
He'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet. By the way, that debate, when they did, no, you're the puppet. You're one of the
Don't
greatest
you wish
exchanges
Hillary
ever?
could do the same to him as Marjorie's about to do to
right.
you?
Maybe
Exactly.
you can see her. She'd do a guest appearance. She
Yeah,
might love
yeah,
it. She
love
might
it.
love it.
Ryan, not only do
Speaking-
we love you, we missed you.
Yeah.
I miss you
You'll
guys.
be back
He's
soon.
back.
We're going to talk more to Ryan in the next
I
couple of
better
months.
be back soon.
Okay,
You'll be
we've
back
been
soon.
speaking
The
with
people
poet,
demand it.
painter,
They do.
playwright
Some
Brian
do.
Landry. The upcoming holiday show is Gold Dust Orphans, Sweeney Claus, the demon father of Sleet Street. For more information, the golddustorphans.org. Thank you so
Good to
much.
see you,
See you
Ryan
at the
Landry.
show.
Coming
Exactly.
up after 1 o'clock news, environmentalist Bill McKibben. I'm Marjorie Egan, he's Jim Browdy, listening to NPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's because of listener support that we're able to bring you trusted news from NPR. Your gift can also be doubled thanks to our Matching Gifts program. To find out more, go online to gbh.org/matchinggifts.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And GM Roth Design Remodeling. Dreams delivered. With custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead in hour 3 of BPR. It's legendary environmentalist Bill McKibben on his great new book here of wind and sun to solve our climate crisis. We'll also get his thoughts on Bill Gates' troubling climate change reversal.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Am I the A-hole day? Okay, if your boss gets donuts for the office, are you allowed to take an entire donut for yourself? Or do you need to cut it in half to be a professional teammate for everybody else around you? Are you kidding me? Sharing is caring. Office Snacks Edition. Weigh in next in the third hour. BPR 89.7 GBH.
I'm Janine Herbst. President Trump says 2 companies that make GLP-1 obesity and type 2 diabetes drugs will reduce prices on some of their medications.
Already Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and EMD Serono have agreed to drastically lower their prices for American patients, and today Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk are joining the phenomenal list of the most exciting announcements.
Trump says the agreement will slash the cost of Wegovy to $250 a month, and Zepbound will be reduced to $346 a month. And Trump says both companies say the oral weight loss drugs currently under development will be sold for around $149 a month. This also clears the way for Medicare to cover the drugs with $50 monthly copays. The list price of the popular drugs range from $1,000 to around $1,300 a month, though the actual price people pay depends on their insurance plans. It's day 37 of a now record-long government shutdown. Earlier this week, some Democrats suggested they were searching for a way out. But as NPR's Sam Greenglass reports, victories at the ballot box Tuesday have emboldened many of them to hold firm.
Over breakfast at the White House, President Trump told Senate Republicans the shutdown hurt their party on election night. The results have given some Democrats, like Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, confidence to hold out for an extension of expiring health care subsidies.
The election results were not vague. They were a lightning bolt.
Bipartisan talks among rank-and-file senators are continuing, but it's unclear if 8 Democrats will back a funding measure without a firm plan to extend the subsidies that can also pass the House and get the president's signature. Sam Greenglass, NPR News, Washington.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she will retire in 2027. The California Democrat was the first and only woman to serve as Speaker, and as such wielded immense power. Her decision comes after she helped lead California's Prop 50 redistricting effort as the party countered President Trump in this week's election. The amount of damage caused by Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica and Cuba has increased. NPR's Rebecca Hersher reports the storm was one of the most powerful hurricanes ever recorded.
Large parts of Jamaica and Cuba are still in ruins a week after Hurricane Melissa swept through. Dozens of people were killed across the Caribbean. A new analysis by the climate risk modeling firm Karen Clark & Company finds the storm caused an estimated $2.4 billion of insured damage. That includes damage to homes, businesses, and industrial sites in Jamaica and Cuba.
NPR's Rebecca Hersher reporting. Wall Street is trading lower at this hour. The Dow is down 423 points, the Nasdaq down 372. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. You could be in for some trouble if you're flying out of Logan tomorrow. As GBH's Jeremy Siegel reports, the airport is among the dozens of hubs that'll see air traffic reduced by 10% due to the government shutdown.
The FAA's move is meant to ease the strain on air traffic controllers who've been working without pay. But Kevin Curtis, New England Vice President for the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, says he's not sure the reduction will be much help for workers who'd already been facing hardship.
A lot of my controllers through personal stories, the high cost of living in New England. There's a significant amount that we're living paycheck to paycheck before the shutdown.
Curtis says the only thing that will really ease the burden is bringing the shutdown to an end. Preliminary data from the aviation analytics firm Cirium show that more than 6,000 passengers could end up stranded at Logan when the reduction takes effect. Jeremy Siegel, GBH News.
A quick look at the calendar tells us that Thanksgiving is 3 weeks from today. If my mom was still with us, she'd already have the table set. Here's hoping everyone has food on their table, not just on Thanksgiving, but on every day. In sports, the Bruins host Ottawa at the Garden tonight. Thursday night football, Las Vegas is at Denver. In the forecast, sun, clouds, and lots of wind today. High about 50 degrees, clear in 30s overnight. Sun, clouds, low 50s tomorrow, partly cloudy, low 60s on Saturday. 49 in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Okay, it's not original. You'll figure it out in a minute, but it did fit, so we decided to do it. We're joined now on Zoom by environmentalist. You can keep playing it. Just put it. Thank you.
Yeah,
very
we
much.
like that song. We love this song.
Environmentalist Bill McKibben. Talk about timing, Marjorie. Did you hear what was on the national news?
The Jamaica hurricane.
The extreme nature of the storms in Jamaica. Bill is an author, educator, the co-founder of 350.org, founder of thirdact.org, and the author of here we are, the newly released and spectacular new book called Here Comes the Sun, A Last Chance, you can get rid of the song now, for the climate and a fresh chance for civilization. He also has a fabulous newsletter on Substack titled The Crucial Years, writes regularly for The New Yorker, on and on. Bill, congratulations yet again. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And you know what?
What?
When you go to Spotify and look it up, Here Comes the Sun turns out to be the most listened to song out of the whole Beatles' vast catalog. Something like twice as many people a day listen to it as Hey Jude or Let It Be. Partly because it's a optimistic song in a dark moment and a gorgeous song. George Harrison clearly was paying attention, hanging around with Lennon and McCartney all those years. But also because human beings have a deep relationship with the sun. We put together for Sunday a list of like 200 great songs about the sun. And then just for fun, I tried to come up with a similar list of great songs about fracking. It was extremely short. So.
Yeah. Well,
wait a second. Before we get to the book,
about both.
Why don't we talk about Sunday since it happened?
Yeah, Sunday was a great success.
It was a huge success,
Tell
right?
people.
Yeah, no, it was truly great. About 500 events across the country, including a beautiful one in Boston. This thing that Michelle Wu helped us kick off in April at Old North Church just really spread across the country, and it was a chance for once in this cursed year for people to get to say, here's not just what we're against, here's what we're for going forward. So it was a great day, and many thanks to all who helped.
Well, congratulations on another. You have such a great conversational style of writing. You go down easy in these books. There's no question about it. But tell us what you were doing with Here Comes the Sun.
Well, look, you guys know from much too long experience that, part of my life's work is to be a professional bummer-outer of other people. I wrote the first book about what we now call the climate change, what we then called the greenhouse effect back in the 1980s, a long time ago.
End of Nature, for those who don't.
End of Nature.
Yeah.
And look, the stuff that we talked about in the End of Nature is now coming true. I mean, last week, as you said, the hurricane that hit Jamaica had the highest wind speed we've ever recorded from the instruments that we drop into those storms. About 600 feet above sea level, the wind was blowing, gusting anyway, at 252 miles an hour. The same day in Vietnam, we had the largest 24-hour rainstorm in human history. 5 feet of rain fell in 24 hours on Hue in central Vietnam. These are the kind of things that can only happen as you warm the planet. So, look, the news is dark. What can I tell you? And darker still, as we'll doubtless discuss, because we live in a country where our democracy is flickering and faltering. But in the midst of that, there is one big good thing happening. And that one thing is big enough and good enough to take a bite out of both the climate crisis and the authoritarianism crisis, and that's this sudden, rapid, unexpected spike in clean energy around the world. We've never seen an energy transition happening this fast. 90% of new generation around the world last year came from the sun and the wind. The world is producing roughly a third more power from the sun this autumn than they were last autumn. So we've hit the very steep part of this S-curve. If we can keep this going for some years, we're not going to stop global warming, too late for that, but we can start to shave tenths of a degree off how hot the planet gets. And every tenth of a degree moves, another 100 million of our brothers and sisters out of a safe climate zone and into a dangerous one. So this is the most important work we could be doing.
Well, one of the things I thought about you so many times during the election, because one of the big issues people were talking about, they're talking about it here and all around the country, is the price of their electric bills, and their heating in general. And I didn't hear anybody, maybe I missed it, say, well, we could be doing something else. But you talk in this book about how Trump, right before the election, and people believe a lot of what he says, even though he's lying. Right before the election, 2024, got up there and talked about wind power being just astronomically important. You can't get, expensive. You can't get more expensive than wind power.
It get more expensive. Yeah. In fact, the sun and the wind are now the cheapest ways to produce power on this planet. Sometime about 5 years ago, Marjorie, we crossed this invisible line where it became cheaper to produce energy from the sun and the wind than from burning coal and gas and oil. Potentially a pretty revolutionary moment for human beings, because human beings have been setting stuff on fire for 700,000 years or so, the archaeologists tell us. And now we don't really need to anymore. That's good news for everybody because it's cheap and clean, unless, of course, you own an oil well or a coal mine, in which case it's desperately bad news, and you have to start handing Donald Trump hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign donations so that he will then, as he promised to do during the campaign, do anything the oil industry asked me to do. So far, that's meant shutting down big wind farms off the coast of New England. 2 weeks ago, they put the kibosh on what would have been the biggest solar farm in America. Would have been enough. One solar farm in Nevada would have been enough to power 2 million homes. There's only 140 million homes in America, so that would have been 1.5% of all the homes in America. We could have done with his one solar farm. But no, we can't do it because, we have to grift and graft for big oil. And, of course, we have to respect our dear leader who got annoyed when he had to look at a windmill off the ninth fairway of his Scottish golf course, So you're right. This is going to be one of the huge election issues in the midterms. We saw it previewed in this time around, and two election results worth noting there. One, the woman, Mikey Sherrill, who won the governorship in New Jersey, campaigned hard on lowering electric prices, in part by building out renewable energy, making sure that New Jersey got the wind farm built off its coast, for instance. The other, and this was really quite remarkable, in a race that I tried to do some help in the state of Georgia, they elected two Democrats to the 5-member board of the Public Service Commission. There were only 2 seats open. The 2 Democrats won them easily, running on a clean energy kind of climate ticket. These were the first Democrats elected to statewide office in the state of Georgia since 2006. There's a real possibility here to seize this issue. And I'll tell you how I would do it if I were running for office. We got a report yesterday, day before. I wrote about it in my Substack the other day. In Australia, there's now so much solar energy that the government announced on Monday that beginning next year, all electricity in Australia for homes will be free for 3 hours every afternoon. You'll be able to set your dishwasher and your clothes dryer, and you'll be able to fill your battery in the basement and charge your EV for nothing. You want to talk about abundance and affordability and all the stuff we're going on about? That's what's happening in Australia. Here, what we're doing is A, build any data center you want, anywhere you want, suck up as much power as you want, and B, don't build any solar farms or wind turbines. If you increase the demand and constrict the supply of the cheapest energy, I'm no PhD economist, but that's going to raise the price. And already we're seeing electricity up 10% around the country this year.
But Bill McKibben, while you're comparing what the United States is not doing or what it's doing wrong as compared to Australia, there are some bright lights in the country.
Absolutely.
California, share the experience of what's happened in the last couple of years there.
California, for good reasons, started in on this work earlier than the rest of the country, conditioned by the fact that they had to control air pollution as early as the 70s. And they've been at work on various parts. They reached a tipping point about 18 months ago. Now, almost every day, California produces more than half the energy, more than 100% of the energy, the electricity that it uses from renewables for long stretches of the day. At night, when the sun goes down, the biggest source of supply to the grid in California is now often batteries that have been soaking up excess sunshine all afternoon. Bottom line, I saw this year's numbers yesterday, this week's numbers. California so far this year is using 37.4% less natural gas to produce electricity than they were 2 years ago. That's the fourth largest economy in the world. That's a big deal. And now the state of Texas is putting up solar panels and wind turbines and batteries faster than California. Not because they care about the climate, because they're, for whatever their other sins, they seem to be firm believers in free markets, and they've figured out that this is the cheapest way to do all this.
Bill McKibben, you have intentionally, I know, used the terms in the last 10 minutes we've been talking renewable, clean energy, not what many of us mistakenly use until you schooled us, alternative energy. Why do you avoid that term there?
Not alternative anymore, baby. That's what we called it for a long time, and it was. I mean, the story of the climate era. We've been having these discussions for a long time, the three of us, and over most of that period, over most of the almost 40 years I've been working on this, the basic geometry here was fossil fuel relatively cheap, renewable energy relatively expensive, and that's why we can't do much about climate. The same thing that's driving the climate crisis, cheap fossil fuel, is also the same thing that drives our economy. That's now flipped. The cheapest energy comes from the sun and the wind. It's not alternative. It's the common sense, straightforward, obvious way to do this. And now it's the fossil fuel industry that somehow has to rally to fight the force of economic gravity. Around the world, they're losing that fight. In this country, at least for the last year, they've been winning that fight because they purchased a president. But and that's terrible, and it will lead to bad things for us and the atmosphere. But it will also, it already has, I think, meant enormous shifts in power worldwide. When American historians look at the last 9 months, they'll concentrate on, whatever this off-brand form of authoritarianism is that we're playing with. When world historians look at it, they'll describe the last 9 months as the time when the United States voluntarily transferred technological and economic primacy from the U.S. to China. And with it, I think, will pretty quickly come political primacy. In fact, as the world gathers to meet in Belém, Brazil, this month to talk about climate, with the U.S. not there, I think it's going to start to become clear that China, on climate and a lot of other things, is now filling the vacuum that we have.
Give some numbers of what China's building every single day on the solar front, Bill McKibben.
China, when they set their minds to things, they get them done. In May, China was building 3 gigawatts worth of solar panels a day. A gigawatt's the rough equivalent of a coal-fired power plant. So they were putting up one of those every 8 hours out of solar panels. And in the process, it's that output of clean technology there is now leaking across borders. I tell the story in the book of Pakistan, where just not government programs, just people went to work about a year ago. They were tired of expensive and unreliable electricity, started importing panels, going on TikTok and YouTube to figure out how to snap them together. They put up 17 gigawatts of solar power on rooftops essentially last year. The entire country's electric grid, built up over many, many decades, was 43 gigawatts. So the scale at which this stuff is now happening is beautiful. Is it happening fast enough to catch up with the physics of climate change? No. Our job is to figure out how to make it happen faster, because we're behind the 8 ball here. We talked about Hurricane Melissa and the rain in Vietnam. We're now facing even deeper, more systemic problems. The news over the last 6 months of what's happening to the jet stream as the pole warms, the jet stream draws its power on the differential in temperature between the equator and the poles. It's gotten wonky now gets stuck in these high amplitude bends with weird weather on the other side. For people in the Bay State, the great currents of the Atlantic are, they're beginning to flicker and falter as fresh water pours off a melting Greenland. It's an incredibly interesting moment. I've been in Massachusetts several times in the last few weeks. The first was on No King's Day.
Yep.
I had to give the talk on Lexington Green, where arguably the first No Kings protest was held in 1775. Right. Where as I was growing up, I was a tour guide there on the Green, so it was fun to go back and relive those stories. A week later, I was in New Bedford to give a talk at the Whaling Museum. I don't know if you guys have been to the Whaling Museum.
We read Moby Dick there. They do the whole Moby Dick thing once a year.
It's great.
We were part of that one year.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's so interesting. But the thing that really struck me was wandering around it, and there's a whole room devoted to what New Bedford did after whaling, like when these guys cashed out their, whaling fortunes and built glass factories and textile factories and on and on and on. Instead of donating billions of dollars to Teddy Roosevelt to, stop the oil from coming to Pennsylvania and, keep us, tied to whales for the rest of our lives, they just adapted and went on instead of what we do now.
That's the voice of Bill McKibben. His latest is Here Comes the Sun. I want to play a little sound from somebody who I know you're a big fan of. Here's Bill Gates on CNBC talking about climate change. Here he is.
Climate is a super important problem. There's enough innovation here to avoid super bad outcomes. We won't achieve our best goal, the 1.5 or even the 2 degrees. And as we go about trying to minimize that, we have to frame it in terms of overall human welfare, not just everything should be solely for climate.
If people haven't been following this, I was being sarcastic, just to be clear, as you'll hear in a second. Could you translate what Gates is saying and what your reaction is, please?
Yep. Donald Trump actually translated it excellently on Truth Social.
Yes,
he read Gates' letter and said, Bill Gates says climate change is a hoax. I was right all along. Thanks, Bill. That's not precisely what he wrote in the letter, but in context, that's pretty much what he said. I don't want to get crosswise with the President of the United States, so I'm backing off on my commitment to do anything about climate change. He couched it in a way of saying, we should instead be working to help poor people deal with poverty and disease. Think about that for a moment. Gates releases this letter the same day that the hurricane hits Jamaica. So we don't have a full accounting yet, but the first indication from the insurance industry is that the damage to Jamaica was somewhere between 30% and 250% of the country's GDP.
Wow.
So let's take the lower number, 30% of their annual GDP. That would be as if Hurricane Katrina, which hit New Orleans and did $100 billion worth of damage, had actually done $9 trillion worth of damage. Think for a moment about how much development is going to be going on in Jamaica in the next 10 years as people somehow struggle to get somewhere back to the status quo ante, how much development is underway in central Vietnam where those flooding rainwaters washed back into zones where people were farming and living, lots of landmines left over from the war in Vietnam. Look, the point is, the most important development task we can undertake is is slowing down the rapid warming of the planet. And happily, the tool that we now have to do that, cheap solar energy, is the most important thing to help development in place after place after place. That's what Rajiv Shah, the former head of USAID, said, who once worked for Gates. He wrote a great op-ed in the Times a year ago saying, want to solve poverty? Electrify everything. And we can do that now. It's not us doing it, and it's certainly not USAID doing it. You know, Elon Musk shut that down.
They're gone.
It's China doing it. Those solar panels in the last 6 months have begun to flood into sub-Saharan Africa, where the village-scale microgrid is going to be the kind of unit by which hundreds of millions of people get power for the first time.
We are out of time. Next time we talk to you, we're going to talk about Framingham. I learned something about Framingham.
Why don't you say it since you broached it?
Well, really quickly, a neighborhood, I didn't even know this, a neighborhood in Framingham is all geothermal. That's right up the street from us. That's pretty impressive.
So many interesting things going on.
Yeah.
But we just have to get off the idea that we can't change, that we're just going to keep. I got to go to Rome in September and see the new guy over there, who was great, by the way. He's like weirdly normal American circa 1970s, you know. But the Vatican's about to become the first fully solar-powered nation on Earth. Farm that'll go online in a couple of months outside Rome. When they flip the switch, they'll be running the whole thing on sun. So when I was there at this little conclave with the Pope, I said, the slogan from now on has just got to be, guys, energy from heaven, not from hell. That's the point. That's how we're going to do it. So on we go.
Well, wait a second. When you're with the Pope, you said, so, hey, guys, the slogans, guys. Is that how you said it?
I'm a Methodist. What can I tell you?
Bill, the book is spectacular. We learned a lot.
And thank you so much. And congratulations on Sunday as well. Here Comes the Sun by Bill McKibben is the name of the book. A last chance for the climate and a fresh chance for civilization. Here Comes the Sun.
Thanks for that, Bill. It's great to see you. Be well.
Take care, guys. Good to see you.
See you soon. Great to see you, too.
Very, very much. Wait a minute. No, I guess that's it. Oh, I want to say, I'm sorry, I was on the wrong page. Bill McKibben is co-founder of 350.org, founder of thirdact.org, newsletter on Substack, The Crucial Years, and the book is Here Comes the Sun. Thanks again to Bill McKibben. Thank you very much. Okay, coming up after this quick break, tension threatens to split an office apart after a worker takes a whole donut instead of splitting it into pieces. You guessed it, that's the Am I the A-hole subject for today. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Rolfe. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, as the government shutdown drags on, the FAA is cutting air traffic at major airports, including Logan. The runner-up in Fall River's mayoral election is pushing for a recount, and the Colorado River simply doesn't have as much water as it used to. How states are renegotiating their share without federal intervention, and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds. New properties are added often. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And Global View Communications, providing customized inclusion business strategy, market research, and recruiting solutions for over 25 years. Global View Communications. Inclusion, it's worth it. InclusionIt'sWorthIt.com.
Welcome back to BPR. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. We're not there Tuesday because of Veterans Day. We'll be back Wednesday and normal days thereafter. The mayor joins us at the library. Mayor Wu joins us on November 18th. The following day, the 19th, Yo-Yo Ma will join us to talk and to play. So it's a question philosophers have been pondering for centuries, Marjorie, millennia even, from maybe Plato and Socrates to Marjorie and me here at GBH. And the question is, who is the a-hole, is the question that they have pondered. Today's scenario, like most of ours, was found deep in the bowels of Reddit. And here it is. A mid-level manager comes into the office bringing donuts to try to sort of bribe the team like they do. We don't know how many donuts they brought, but we do know that these donuts came whole and specifically had not been cut into pieces by the boss trying to impress his underlings. Are you with me so far or no?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. One of the employees, that's the Reddit poster, gets some severe looks from her colleagues and the boss after taking a whole donut. This is very important. A whole donut for herself rather than cutting one of the donuts in half. That's the dilemma. They argue that if the boss intended for them to really eat only half of a donut, they should have cut the donuts in half when they brought them, nice GBH News jacket,
Thank you.
when they brought them into work, or better yet, maybe brought in a box of Munchkins. That was actually Marjorie's addition. That's not part of the discussion.
I didn't mention anything about Munchkins.
Well, somebody looks like you. Still, they're feeling the heat and worried about the reputation of the office. So to help us settle this, 877-301-897, is this person being, and one of our colleagues contributed this thought, it's beautifully phrased, is this person being a donut a-hole for taking a whole donut, is the question. Who is the a-hole here? Is it the mid-level manager who came in and didn't cut the donuts in half, and all the coworkers who were looking askance, is that the right word? Askance at this poor worker, or is it the worker who should have, if she cared about her fellow workers, cut the donut in half, and then at the end of the day, if nobody else was interested, then maybe.
Okay.
Now I know tell us who you think the a-hole is.
Well, I feel I have some expertise in this area.
Why?
Because many times before they lock the door to go to Dunkin' Donuts, I used to go to Dunkin' Donuts.
Get a dozen donuts.
Get a dozen donuts.
Yeah.
We come back and we eat them. So you get a variety of donuts. So my feeling is, if you want to try, you want to have the plain donut. You also want to have the butter crunch, or maybe you want to have the jelly donut. Then, not the jelly donut, but you might like, or the glazed donut. You might take half because you wanted to have half a butternut, half a plain, half a. So that would be it where you might yourself. But otherwise, if you just wanted to go in and have a whole butter crunch donut, you take the whole damn butter crunch donut. How can you say you have to cut it in half?
I'm about to say you have to cut it in half.
That's ridiculous.
The reason you have to cut it in half, first of all, you have coworkers, yes or no?
Yes, you have.
You have no idea, excuse me. You have no idea if the other coworkers have gotten a decent share of the donuts. So you cut,
Then you get two dozen
you don't.
donuts.
Well, the guy didn't buy 2 dozen donuts. He bought 1 dozen. And so what do you do?
It doesn't say that.
Yes, it does.
He just says he brought in some donuts.
Whatever. So
Number unspecified.
Can I finish my thought here,
okay,
please?
Go ahead.
Now, what the person should have done, cut the donut in half, and if by the end of the day no one came and took the other half of the donut, you know what you can do? You can eat the other half of the donut,
that's ridiculous.
which becomes the whole donut.
That's ridiculous.
Now, let me just say this.
Some people may not like you breaking a donut in half because they're germaphobes.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
The final thing is, and the reason she, the non-cutting in half, whole donut eating woman, is the a-hole here, this didn't happen to her once. This happened to her twice. At 2 different workplaces. Does that make you a little suspicious about where the problem actually lies? Marjorie missed that in the story.
I think you made that up.
No, I did not. It's in the story. Wait, I'll tell you.
Happened to her twice?
It happened to her twice.
Okay.
Wait a second. This has
happened
at 2 different places I work in.
Okay. I think if the boss
She's a whole donut eater.
If the boss brings in a dozen donuts,
cut in half.
If you have 50 people in the newsroom,
then you got to cut it in half.
But I mean, if the boss brings in a dozen donuts for 50 people, the boss is the a-hole. He should have brought 4 dozen donuts so everybody gets to have a donut.
That's not the question. Okay. And by the way, you know what you can do if you have 50 coworkers? You cut it in quarters, Marjorie. That's what you do. You cut it in quarters because you care about your damn coworkers. By the way, the reason Marjorie, let me be clear, for those people who don't know, and Marjorie's very fit, she is really a donut eater.
I am a donut eater.
You can shove them right in there.
Well, that was one of the great tragedies of my life, that you have to walk all the way around the building now to get to Dunkin' Donuts. I don't like the
it's
coffee.
sad.
Don't like the coffee.
No.
But I do like their donuts.
Okay, so
not enough caffeine
Marjorie,
in the coffee.
as always, has confused the issue. Let me try to explain this carefully. The guy or somebody, the manager brings in some amount of donuts.
Some number of donuts.
And this greedy
and they're not cut up. They're
the greedy worker decides, instead of cutting the donut in half so others have a chance, she eats a whole damn donut.
Yeah.
And both the guy who brought them and her coworkers are upset with her. We want to know if they're the a-holes for being upset with her, or if she's the a-hole for greedily. Is that a word, greedily?
A texter says
for greedily eating a whole donut.
They blame Zoran Mandami for this donut socialism.
They should, exactly. Now, an anonymous texter says Jim would never take just one donut. Actually, you would be wrong.
You're not into donuts.
Marjorie is a far greater donut fan.
You're not a big sweet person.
I'm not a big sweet person.
I'm a big sweet person.
No, you're a big sweet person.
I'm a big
That's
sweet
correct.
person, no question about it.
Can I tell you one thing? I wasn't going to say this, but because, as always, you're making up part of the facts in this thing. There was about a month ago, someone brought in a dozen donuts. And
they did?
Yeah.
Was I not here?
You were here, actually. There was one donut left. And there was a poor person who hadn't eaten in 2 days. Hadn't eaten in 2 days. Was running towards the studio to get a bite of the donut. And rather than, I said, Marjorie, cut it in half so the other person that had been eaten in 2 days can have a piece of the donut. Marjorie quickly shoved the whole donut in her mouth.
Yeah.
And then when the woman came, I'm not done, who hadn't eaten in 2 days,
Yep.
Marjorie said, there were no donuts when I got here. So judge accordingly Marjorie's position on this issue.
Here's Aaron in Hopkinton. Wow. I've heard Jim be wrong before, but this is next level insane. Just like Halloween-sized logs of liverwurst.
I wish.
You take the whole thing.
You don't. You really, in all seriousness, you don't, okay?
I think that if somebody brings, you're entitled to have the whole donut. And Mary from Worcester says, if the manager wanted donuts to be cut up, why not just leave a knife in the box and call it a day? Who does... She called, donut Nazi. Did they do that in Seinfeld?
I don't know. The soup Nazi. Yeah.
Was there a donut Nazi? Should have not. There should have been. Okay, 877-301-8970. And this is another point, too. Who wants they're all a-holes. Who wants to eat a fingered partial donut? Disgusting. Another donut Nazi.
Do you know what's on the window in this studio right here? No, you're looking in the wrong direction. Over there. You know what's over there in the corner?
Donuts?
No, plastic knives.
Oh, plastic knives.
You know what you do when a donut comes in? You pick up one of those plastic knives, cut that baby in half.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah. I would just say that you just ate half my muffin a little while ago.
Wasn't a muffin. It was actually
biscuit.
It was
a biscuit.
It was a Sweet Cheeks.
Sweet Cheek biscuits.
Biscuit. Tiffany Faison brought us
if you love
day.
biscuits,
yeah.
Nobody makes them like Sweet Cheeks in the Fenway.
Nobody. Okay.
I've been eating them for 3 days
That's
now.
great. Now, John in the car, you are first on the donut caper here on Boston Public Radio.
Paul from Marshfield says, take a bite out of the donut and then put it back.
That'll teach him. Hi, John. What's up? What's your position? Who's the a-hole?
How you doing, guys?
We're good. We're very well.
I have the dubious nickname of the Donut Man because I always bring donuts in to the places I work. I'm not a manager. I'm just one of the drivers. I'll leave it at that. But
that's very
what
nice.
I found is, and I get them from Leaders. You probably know that in Fall River, one of the nice bakeries.
What's it called, John? What's it called?
Leaders Bakery, right on Main Street.
Okay, all right.
And I used to go to Lou's until they closed down after so many decades. Sweetbread, because you're Fall River.
Sweetbread, I love sweetbread.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I bring the donuts in, and what I started finding out is these guys would pick the certain kind of donut they wanted, and if it wasn't there the next week, I'd bring them in on Fridays. I only do it 1 day a week.
Sure.
And they would be upset at each other. Who ate my Boston cream?
That's a problem.
Where's my glaze?
That's a problem.
And I'm like, guys, so I started cutting them in half.
Hear that?
And then they wouldn't eat the other halves. And I'm like, they just sit there with a donut box, half a donut. So I said, you guys complain, and it just got to a point where I still bring the donuts in, but I told them I don't want to hear anything.
Wow.
Because if you guys start complaining and bickering among yourselves, I'm not going to bring them in anymore.
So let me be clear, John. I want to get the facts straight. You are still the donut man, but you don't want to hear any crap from your coworkers. Is that a fair summary?
Well, yeah, it's a gift. It's good nature. It's
exactly.
A gift of good nature.
It's very nice
they
of
should
you
cut
to
the
do
damn
that.
things in half.
Okay,
John,
we have
it's a horrible connection. Thank you for an excellent
Thank you for
call.
calling, and thank you for calling from the river. That's very nice.
You call it the river?
Some people call it the
you
river.
You don't call it the
I
river.
don't call it the river. I call it Fall Reeve.
Okay.
Okay.
So here is Susan from Somerville. For the first time in 10 years, I agree with Jim. It's unbelievable, but why does he eat off other people's plates? Because if you only have a half a donut, you have to eat somewhere, and that is the...
Okay, Kate in the car really nails it. She said, this is why people want to work from home. Donut politics is ridiculous.
No, it is not. I'm sorry, Kate. That is not true. In all seriousness, I know you think I'm just saying this to provoke you. The respectful, easy thing to do, the donuts come in, slice it in half, cut it in half, eat a half of the donut. If it's not gone at the end of the finite period of time, then feel free to take the other half.
I've had many donut sharing experiences with you.
You have.
Scott Brown, who I always thought had a crush on you, used to bring a dozen donuts every time he came to our old radio station.
That's when he was the state senator. He didn't bring his donut. Well, actually, he did when he was
running
United
for
States
Senate.
senator. He did.
I don't recall any knives and you're cutting any donuts in half involved, Jim. I don't recall that.
I was sort of starry-eyed. I have to admit, those times I couldn't. I didn't think it was safe to
Remember
be holding a knife.
Remember the music we played after when he was there?
I know. Let's not get into that, okay? Anonymous texter says, and I consider this like an actionable comment. It's sort of like, I find it hard to believe Jim would only eat half of anything.
That's a very good point.
That is a hard one to respond to.
That is a very good point. That's a very good point.
877-301-8970. By the way, I just want to say, you confirmed this before.
Yes.
I generally, even if no one else is here, I do not eat a whole donut. Is that correct?
You're not into sweets.
I'm not.
You're into liverwurst.
And I do.
And salami.
Now, if they brought a tube of liverwurst, I would eat the whole tube.
And bacon.
That's correct.
Yeah, those kind of things. I like sweet things because I'm so sweet, of course. Okay, let's go to Sally in New Hampshire.
Hello,
Thank you for calling,
What's
Sally.
your deal?
Hello, you guys. I love you. I call a lot. But
Thank you.
I have to say, yes, because I love you. So this time, I have to say that the a-hole is definitely the manager. What are the rules? If there are rules, you should just be able to enjoy the whole donut.
Exactly.
And exactly. That's crazy that, well, you have to cut it in half. Well, if that's the case, then buy more donuts for everybody.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
It is incredible, Sally, the fact that you and Marjorie are blaming the person who is kind enough to bring the donuts. Here, I think it's what?
Jim, listen. Harriet Heineman just called and she wants to know what kind of donuts you love. So
she wants her donuts back, so to speak.
Hello?
Okay. Sally, get out of here. Sally's a great caller. We love Sally.
A well-known whole donut eater.
That's
what I understood.
She could, because
maybe a half
strength
dozen
for the Olympics. She didn't make it to the Olympics. She made it to the trials.
That's right.
Okay. By the way,
takes a lot of energy to shot put. What are you throwing when you shot put?
A shot put.
A weighted thing.
That's why it's called a shot put, because you're shot putting it. By the way, Diane from Nashua could not be more wrong. She suggests, which is ridiculous, a donut is a single serving. Mm-hmm. Why did they create knives, Diane, if a donut was a single serving?
Carl wants to know if we flip a coin to figure out which one of us takes which side and who is the a-hole.
No, a week or two ago we both agreed. This is not an easy. Yeah. This is a totally easy kind of thing.
No, it's not. Jim has a ridiculous position.
The primary obligation you have, and I think you share this notion. You're just not playing it out here. You have to be nice to your coworkers. And if it turns out one coworker, like that woman who hadn't eaten in a week when she came to work that day, she hadn't eaten in 6.5 days. Even if she had eaten during that 6.5 days. You give them half the donut.
Okay.
And if they don't want it, then you eat the whole donut. It's quite easy.
Okay. The reason Jim feels this way, he doesn't really like donuts. If we were talking about something different, like sausage.
Excuse me, what happened when you, during the 1 o'clock news break, you brought out a Tiffany Faison biscuit. What'd you do with it?
I put it in the microwave oven.
And then what'd you do with it?
And I gave half of it to you.
Exactly.
Because you asked me for it.
Exactly.
I didn't cut it with a knife. I broke it in half.
Because if you had eaten the whole thing, how much biscuit would I have had? Exactly. Like the starving woman, nothing. Roger in a car. Who's the a-hole? Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? First time, long time.
Thank you.
We love those things. Hello.
You know what? I can't believe that people would be that petty and about a whole donut.
Exactly. Exactly. It's ridiculous.
Well, flesh it out a little bit, Roger. Keep talking.
The guy got fired.
Wait, how's that?
What's that?
Jeez, I don't know what the word is for it.
Yeah. That's
Wait
right.
a second.
They
Who's
get sent
petty?
to HR.
Who's petty?
Wait, Jim.
Yeah.
Some nice guy brought in a dozen donuts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And somebody's complaining that they didn't get the chocolate, or the chocolate filled one, or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
Green.
Exactly.
I just can't believe it.
Now, Roger, I know you have strong feelings about this, and I'm really glad your first call is about donut splitting. But how hard would it have
tackle
been?
the big issues here.
How hard would it have been to cut it in half? I mean, that's the part that you're all ignoring. Just cut it in half, eat a half, move on.
Wait. You left the fact that how many were there? 13 people there, or were there 6 people there?
There were 47 workers. I just counted them.
That's right.
Well,
There's
then
a
we should have
photograph.
brought in 4 dozen donuts.
Exactly.
Okay.
One whole donut for everybody.
A donut
Or
per
get
person.
A couple of bacha.
One man, one donut.
Roger, I have to
48
say, you
people.
came in really strong with that first
You did.
call. We hope you make a second soon, because that was excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, Roger.
Roger, thank you very much for that call. Now, here is an existential question,
Yeah.
Jim, from Andy and Milton. If the boss had brought out in pizza, would she have had to cut a slice in half for the same reason? Or can you pick up and eat one piece of pizza?
Well, actually, that boss always brings in several pizzas. So he does. That's ridiculous. Obviously, you don't. That's totally ridiculous.
It's the same
Who
premise
asked that question?
as a donut. Andy from Milton.
Okay, well, Andy from Milton, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, Marjorie's platform. Apparently, Zoe is going to be Marjorie's campaign chair.
Oh, thank
because
you.
she thinks your platform should be one man or woman or person, one donut.
One person,
That could
one
be
donut.
huge. That
I
could
think
be
so.
huge. Yeah,
A donut in every pot.
I like that.
Okay.
Okay. Here is.
Rebecca.
Oh, this is the kind of person who has an open mind, unlike you. Here's an anonymous texter. I wish you'd sign your name. This Thanksgiving, this is actually lovely.
Yep.
I'm only eating one green bean from the casserole out of respect for Jim. That is exactly what I'm talking
It's
about.
the way to go. Or you take the one green bean, you cut it in half.
You don't have to divide it in
with a
half. There are
knife.
enough green beans. And by the way, this person, if it turns out after you've taken one, there are others left after everybody's had one, take another one.
They're probably like 150 green beans.
So
in
you'll
the
get a
green
few,
bean
unless it's a
casserole.
really big dinner.
Rebecca in Rhode Island. What do you think, Rebecca?
Hello, Rebecca.
So I'm thinking that whoever brings the donuts should be the one to cut them in half.
Exactly.
So every
Correct.
year I belong to a corral, and we have a dress rehearsal, and our director brings in donuts, clementines, and coffee. And he brings a box of munchkins, a box of donuts, and the donuts are always cut in half.
What? Oh.
Okay, so you know. So you know to only take half, right?
Yeah. Another thought for me was
Please.
whether it could be weight related. Because, you go to take a whole donut, people could look at you oddly, whether you're, taking half a donut, it's like,
Great
oh,
point.
they're watching their weight kind of thing.
That's a good point, too. People are very judgy about donut eating.
Rebecca, I just want to say, when you mentioned, I forgot to mention this before, when you mentioned munchkins, which is an important addition to the conversation, Marjorie will vow that this is, every time someone brings in munchkins, I cut them in half for the staff so that everybody at least gets a half a munchkin. Rebecca, thank you for an excellent call. Here's James and JP.
Yeah.
This is not directly on point, but it's an important sidelight. My medical school classmate, who'd been a boxer in Brockton, always said it took at least 7 years to get a donut out of your system.
No.
He never ate them. I will not live long enough to clear the number I have eaten. That's sad, James.
That is sad.
That's
I'll be
very
dead with a
sad.
lot of donuts in my stomach then.
By the way, I should say, which one of the things I admire about you, you're not just a donut liker. But a lot of people like that glossy, sweet crap with like bacon
Very
on it.
simple.
You use your basic donut.
Very simple. My favorite is the classic original Dunkin' donut.
With nothing?
With nothing.
Nothing.
No. My second favorite is the Butter Crunch.
Yeah, Butter Crunch is fabulous.
Butter Crunch is fabulous, but I like donuts that are cakey. I don't want the glazed donuts; they're too light.
Can I tell the truth about something? Because I want to be transparent here. I like Butter Crunch donuts so much. When they were brought in last time, I ate 3/4 of one. I cut a quarter out to leave for our coworkers, and I had 3/4 instead of half. So I sort of violated my own principle.
Okay, but we took care of those biscuits when we had them last week. Tiffany Faison brought them in.
It was actually this week. I know what you mean.
I got 5 of them.
Anonymous texter, Harriet and Jim, the shot putter and the off putter. That is
very good.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. Anonymous.
Apparently, Harriet ate the entire crawler in one bite.
Okay, that was from Paul.
She shoved it right in. I've covered when I was at the Herald. I used to cover a lot of those eating contests. It was usually
those.
the hot dog contest of 4th of July when it's like 90 degrees and you were in there shoving the hot dogs. Yeah, and they wet the roll to get it down easier.
Disgusting.
Why have I never seen a donut contest? You see donut eating, you see pie eating, you see all these disgusting
Could you guys
things.
do us a favor while we're talking? If you go to the International Competitive
It'll
Eating
tell you.
website, they will say what's the most donuts ever eaten in 8 or 10 minutes, and I think that's important for our listeners to know.
Okay. Oh, someone is saying the manager should have brought only old fashions. Are those the kind of donuts?
That's what you like. No, the old fashioned.
The old-fashioned plain? Is that what they're called?
Plain donut,
yeah, those are really good, I think, and they're usually very fresh.
Nobody really likes those except you.
No, they sell quite a bit of them.
I like the apple cider donut, as we've discussed 1,000 times. Now, an anonymous texter, another is casting aspersions, like a lot of you have done. There's no way Jim would ever, in capital letters, share a donut. If he and Marjorie were stranded on an island with one donut, Marjorie would starve. You don't know that. You really don't know that. So I wouldn't say it if I were you.
Here's another one, Jim, going after you. As usual, Jim, Nanny State Brownie, wants to regulate everyone and everything to death.
Okay.
I'd eat the whole thing while maintaining unbroken eye contact with the person judging me. Yum, yum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I think this is kind of a ridiculous situation.
Wait till you hear this.
What?
Mickey Sudo, in 8 minutes in August of 2023, this is not possible. At the Thailand Food Kingdom, whatever that is, 87 donuts from Daddy Dough. 87 donuts in 8 minutes. You know what that is? I'll do the math for you.
That's a lot of donuts.
That's 10 a minute, which means Mickey Sudo, M-I-K-I, Sudo, ate one donut every 6 seconds. What do you think of that?
I think that they're gross. Like I think of all those food eating contests as gross because you can tell that they're at the end of their ability to eat, and then it's a really ugly situation.
Yeah, it's a glazed donut, by the way. She ate 80. I think she's whatever.
A texter just says it's gotten right to the nub of the story here. Donuts were meant to be eaten whole.
No, it's not
period.
True.
End of story.
Yeah, well, that's just based on what?
Well, because they're continuous shape. They're round with a hole in the middle. They're meant to eat the whole thing.
Oh, wait a second. Because they're continuous shape with a hole in the middle. Mm-hmm. Oh, let me come up with something. Have you ever heard of the Newsfeed Cafe?
I have.
Have you ever shared a bagel like almost every day with somebody?
Yes, I have.
Do you share 2 bagels or do you cut one bagel in half and share with me?
Well, you know why?
Just answer the question.
Because the Newsfeed Cafe people cut them in half, and we got them cut in half.
Okay,
they're already cut in half.
Exactly my point.
That's right. So if you didn't want to have, if you were going to get a donut cut in half, then you would eat half. Yeah. This is the point people are trying to make, Jim.
What is
the boss should have cut the donuts in half if he was such a cheapskate that he only wanted people to have half a donut.
Okay, fine. Bob and Quincy are next on BPR. Hi, who's the a-hole?
The person who would eat 2 donuts would be the a-hole.
Yeah, and I think this woman probably would, but go ahead, yeah.
I don't mean 2 halves. I mean 2 whole donuts.
I got that.
I lean towards Marjorie. I think Marjorie is making very reasonable arguments.
That's right. Thank you.
A lot of food. Thank you. Having been in a lot of food situations in my time, I'm retired now, so I could have all the donuts I want. But anyway, back when I was working, no one ever said. There were times when donuts were cut in half, but no one ever said, "We have half donuts for everybody in the office today."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Great point.
I just thought Jim had a traumatic episode with a donut.
Maybe I did. Bob, that's my personal business.
With a donut.
But
Bob, but you're absolutely right. Nobody says, I brought in a box of half donuts. Nobody ever says that. I brought in a dozen donuts.
I generally say I have 24 half donuts for the team here. Bob, thank you for a fairly good call. Now, let's see what Jared has probably never had a donut. That's fairly obvious. So it's hard for you to comment on this. Do you know what we're talking about?
It apparently takes 7 years to get them out of your system.
Okay.
Ew, gross.
Do you have any idea what you're talking about? Not really?
I only heard a little bit of this one, but I think I'm on your side.
That she should have cut the damn donut in half.
Yeah.
And when she found out all of her coworkers had been taken care of, then she could eat the other half.
You know why he says this? Because he's never had a donut. That's why.
What is this donut you keep talking about?
When was the last donut you had? Be honest. Raise your right hand. Like 1978?
How dare you?
Exactly.
You never snuck out the back door to Dunkin' Donuts before the door got locked on us.
I keep hearing about this Dunkin' Donuts thing. I don't know what you're talking
Marjorie
about.
used to go out the back door.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding
until
about
somebody
the
told on her. Who was that?
Oh, yeah, we all got in trouble.
No one told on me.
Marjorie was a perfect example of why we can't have nice things, because then they locked that back door and we weren't able to go out that way.
Exactly. We haven't had a donut in 11 years because of that. It's really horrible. Okay. By the way, can I tell you something?
Because whenever those things happen, you think, do I really want the half donut that you know that everybody else has touched?
Yeah.
That's right.
I have no idea what he's talking about either.
You take the whole donut.
Can I say one thing?
Or you bring a knife.
I listened to half of your show yesterday. Yep. I could only listen to half because I had a thing to do. That was fabulous. I love the movie deal thing.
Oh, the movie deal's great.
It's
really fun.
It's really great.
Yeah,
Callers were great. I loved how into it they were. You're going to keep doing it, right?
Yeah, of course. And we had that one caller from Westboro who's called twice now. And she needs to be a New York Times film critic. She's amazing.
Critiquing the fine points of the movie. Yeah, so do you have a movie chosen yet for next week?
We do.
Oh, what is it?
It's December 17th. We're going to be doing A Christmas Carol, all of them. So just pick your favorite and call in with your favorite.
Wow.
Whether it's the Muppets, whether it's Scrooged.
So
what was the original one? What was the original one? Who played the Scrooge in the original?
Hannibal Lecter did it.
No,
it was Reginald Van Owen in 1938.
Excuse me.
Wow. Well,
is that set up? Did you tell him in advance you're going to ask him that?
Well, no, but he knows everything about.
What are you doing today, really quickly?
Oh, right. We're going to be talking to Anthony Amore, who the security guard. Of course, you just had him here too, about his new book, The Rembrandt Heist, about the MFA heist.
He's a head of security at the Isabel Stewart.
We're going to talk to Benjamin Fortier Marine, who has written a monologue called Michael and the Saints. It will be unveiled at the Hyannis Arts Hall as part of a Veterans Day remembrance. He'll talk to us about his experiences. And then the writer of Lizard Boy on stage now at Speakeasy Stage Company.
Great.
Excellent.
We'll be listening.
Jared, thank you very much.
Take care.
You can walk to Dunkin' Donuts, but you have to go all the way around the building. Okay. Thank you very much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, and check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we'll be back at the Boston Public Library. NBC 10's Sue O'Connell and GBH's Adam Reilly for Press Play. Plus, BPL President David Leonard and Watertown Free Public Library's Kim Long. Live Music Friday with Roberta Flack's longtime mentee, Gabrielle Goodman.
I was listening to her last night. She is unbelievable.
A real treat. And the Boston Globe business columnist, Shirley Leung. We want to thank our great crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, additional support from Mira Donaldson. Brad Lewis ran our YouTube stream today. Our engineer is John Claude Parker. Our executive producer is Jenny Bologna. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen is going to be another great one. Starts immediately after us on 89.7 GBH.
Can I say something?
Yes.
If people get there early tomorrow, rather than we're just coming at 11, roughly 9:15, Marjorie and I will split a bagel. We'll each have half a bagel. Two halves equals a whole, even though it's round and contiguous.
Okay.
Or continuous, or whatever it is.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot for tuning in. See you later. Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Lowell Institute. Mill Talk, the Great Boston Fire of 1872, presented by the Charles River Museum with speaker Stephanie Shoro, Wednesday.